We're back for real. Now, I will now be unprofessional by saying, like, I wanted to do a show last week, but Yamato wasn't here, so I couldn't do one. So
I offered, but to be
actually,
fair, it would have been hard. Would have been hard.
Here's the thing. Technically, he did say he could do it, and we could have done it on like one of the days. But the thing is, it was actually more like he had a really busy schedule, and so Monty. It wasn't even me. I won't even pretend it was me. It was Monty took mercy on him. I was like, you know what? It is a bit rough this week, so you can take 1 week off. You can get out the content mine for 1 week and just go and be free. What did you do? You just went and did. Was it only Lost Tournament? Was it only the Ruddy Sack, all that shit, or just NLC? That's it.
So it was NLC in Denmark, and then I just took the opportunity to fly out to Egypt. I was
right.
like,
you did a personal thing after, right?
It was the 50th birthday angle for my fiance's parents. Just included them in a trip. Hurghada, Egypt is pretty cheap.
Okay.
And honestly, it's like I've been at the brink of burnout for like the last 3 years, so I just needed to, jump ship for a moment. But the last like 30 hours, I've watched maybe, I don't know, like 20 BO5s to catch up. So I'm back to burnout mode. It's just the league life.
Wait a minute. I couldn't believe doing work burns out. We're watching games burns you out.
Nah, not really, honestly.
Because I kind of find, like being serious, I actually think this last weekend, I think this was one of the best last weeks of League of Legends in fucking ages. Probably the best one of the year so far. Like, I like, unironically, I find when I watch like a really good match, I find it like the opposite. I find it like sustains me and keeps my passion for esports. You know what I mean?
No, it's like the live games. Watching the live games was super fun. It's like, especially like yesterday with the LEC.
Yeah, it was dope.
And everything that went down. Live games are fun, but it's like going back in time, watching what happened to JDG, watching FTX versus IG.
I see what you mean, like, right? True.
Those are ones that are not like super hype.
There was some. I've just realised there wasn't the Fnatic story. Like, there was some frauds. There was some frauds that caused some stress. I was just thinking of the positive. Because, by the way, if you follow general sport, that's a great week for me. I was watching the tennis final. It was mega. If no one saw that, the French Open. I watched this football match last night. The Nations League one, that was banger. Also, all these finals were sick. Like LEC, I actually had. What's great is just because of the odds, I took KOI in both those series to beat KC and GT. So I was watching because they had crazy odds. You have to realise they were like 3 to 1 or something on both, I think. So, and then also you had, I mean, the only one that was a bomber to me was like that bizarre LTA one where it's like Team LEC could just fucking commit seppuku or something. We'll get to that. Don't worry, we'll get to that one. Here's the thing, though. I think we do the classic move, Yamato, because I'll always tell people one of the things is, when people watch these shows or type a day later on Reddit, you usually start to forget the match. I think a match is like a dream, mate. Once you just come out of it, you remember most of it. But then the longer that goes on, more of it sort of fades away, We just watched, obviously, because as we wait to finish to do this show, we just watched the LPL Ultra Banger Upper Bracket Final, which was BLG versus Anyone's Legend. By the way, as of right now, probably what the rematch could be in the final even. And by the way, there's another interesting match where, on paper, if people don't know, BLG had done their own G2 move where they'd sort of powered up, except they actually started at the latter half of the regular season. They powered up, got better and better and better and better, just had the odd random result. But aside from that, they were beating everyone. And then they come into this series. You think of all the other frauds that have fallen away. Anyone's Legend beats them 3-2, though. Interesting result. Let's talk about this one first, because I do think this is quite interesting, because to me as well, like, this is, in a weird way, Yamato, you actually needed a result like this, in my opinion, if you were Anyone's Legend. This is the sort of, like, big result you need to, like, make yourself feel legitimate, feel like we actually can't. Because if you win this series, why can't you be the champion, man? This is your time to be the champion. This is the split, right?
No, definitely. I feel like this was it. I think definitely in terms of how the series also played out, I think it's very clear that in terms of like in the game, in terms of what Anyone Legends represents as a team, in terms of like macro, in terms of how they play together, in terms of how they drive the game and how honest you can be about their game states, I think that Anyone's Legends is like up there. It's like if Genji is S+, I think that Anyone's Legends is S tier right there.
Yeah.
The main thing we always talked about is like how far can Hope and Shanks actually like take this team if they're in the fights and they actually play them, like how good can they actually be? And I feel like this year they are broken through ceilings. Like they are performing super good. The main thing to always maneuver as well, something to that I always like pay attention to is like Fearless is also something that just sporadically puts teams in like weaker positions draft wise. And I thought in that game 5 that when I saw the Akali come through and the Renekton come through, I was like, oh, this is a Billy draft where they're gonna be super, super strong in the early game and take over the game and potentially win. But then off of like one beautiful fight at Drake 2, Anyone's Legend just took over the game completely. And they slammed the Jinx so early, and I was like worried. Like usually Jinx is something that falls into danger. They dropped the jungle 4-5 because usually they pair it together with like a Volibear to set up the Jinx for success. But instead, Anyone's Legend just managed to find a very, very early team fight win. And Billy showcase, on the Billy side, it's like, yeah, players are individually good. I think that On and Elk have like caught up to how well Knight and Bin are playing. But even in that like final game, like I was very disappointed with how Knight was playing on the Akali. I don't think they are close to like the peak form as I expected them to be, especially when the kind of the year unfolded, knowing how they went to finals, went to 5 games. I was kind of hoping that the Billy story would continue somewhat, but with the coach firing and the jungle firing and the jungle change, they've kind of landed in a place where I'm like, okay, they're picking up the scraps of all the other teams around them kind of falling apart, and they're like the clear second best in the LPL. But it's very clear that this is a team that when Win is in good draft conditions, for example, like that Camille game, I'm like, oh, it's Camille, Galio, he's going to carry this game. He's in a skill matchup against Flandre, no problem. And that was like an easy win for them. But in regards to like team cohesion and in terms of how they kind of set up the map, set up the plays, Anyone's Legend was just much, much better. And I'm happy to see that Anyone's Legend actually won. I feel like it's so deserved because they've been so good for so long. And I feel like that's the storyline of Tarzan too, is like all those regular seasons where he's dominating, all those series that lead up to the final series dominating, and then like falling short at the final line. I feel like with Anyone's Legend, I'm finally like tired of that. Because with Tabe too, in his journey in Billy and then joining Anyone's Legend, it was always like, oh, second place,
a lot of
losing with
titles.
ADG.
Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of trophies, unfortunately.
It was like he was like assistant coach on RNG, right? And that was pretty much like it, where he like won a title and went to like MSI with them, but he wasn't like the main guy. So it feels good to see Anyone's Legend win, but they still have one more, push to do. But this was definitely like the big one.
Oh, I mean, look, there's a whole bunch of narratives here. By the way, back-to-back finals too. So a minimum they're second in both splits, which I think is actually really good for this core of players because, like I always say about this core, is if they actually are going to end up being legendary players, they're doing it like now when they're like, there's a team they've already ascended, but now the individual players, you wait to see who can come online. By the way, I actually think Hope's like massively stepped his game up this split. Like a whole bunch of players. Here's the obvious angle. First of all, not only are they in the final again, this time they actually should be the favourite to win, mate. Last split when it was like TS was going to do the low bracket, whatever. Well, spoiler, TS is done. And if you actually look, I actually think for the LPL, this was a really important result, mate, because if you think about it, like certain other regions, we'll get to LEC later, like it looked like one of those stupid ones where it's like, so the whole regular split, top esports and A1 Legend are the best, but then BLG just wins anyway. That's like some G2 shit where it's like, who cares about regular split? It's actually really good, in my opinion, that after TS, which we'll get to later, turned out to be frauds, then Anyone's Legend aren't frauds because, mate, this is how they played all split long. They have been like for me, at worst, on their worst day, they were the third best team in the LPL. They might have even been the best or the second best at times. I think it's just because head-to-head TES was better, but I think what a fantastic performance. And crucially, yeah, right now you should favour them to win. And mate, here's where this is how you know in our brains we don't quite trust Anyone's Legend until they get to this point. Because no one stopped to actually realise, Yamato. Bro, Tarzan, first MSI. Shanks is going international, bro. This is going to be fucking sick. Like, think about this, right? Obviously, the joke is, actually, we don't even have to do the bloody TS narrative that everyone's scared of like, oh, fuck, are they going to be amazing? They're already done. They're cooked. Mate, look, even though TS have some all-time great players, I want to see this Anyone's Legend team play internationally, mate, because there is, in my opinion, the sort of KC angle where they could just play really well. Maybe they'll just come out and not have all those demons. Like, aside from Tarzan, who, by the way, it was never MSI he was going to, it was always Worlds. Like, aside from Tarzan, there's no one really here that should be all, like, tortured. Like, if anything, they should be like KC and be like, we've got nothing to lose. Let's just prove ourselves and fucking do a crazy run at MSI. And by the way they play right now, like, people might laugh. I think they would smoke all the Western teams Anyone's Legend. Look really good, mate. I mean, the Shanks himself, like, bro, if you think about some of these fearless drafts you see with more like rookie-type mid laners, some of them you can see are getting drained in the draft. Bro, this guy's pulling out the Aurora game 5. Like, this boy's legit. I can't wait, mate. So I'm looking forward to MSI already, mate. It's going to be sick.
Bro, it's like just for me when it comes to Shanks, he just has he has the same trajectory like Cream did, but I hope he just
Yeah,
doesn't fall as shitty and
exactly,
flat
exactly.
as Cream did. Because
Yes.
Shanks, I think above and beyond, I think he was the best performing mid lane. I was very surprised when the All Pro came out and like Scout was at the top. I'm like, what
Yeah,
the
agreed.
fuck? And we were
Agreed.
watching the same games. Like
That's
Scout,
what you call recency bias, mate. They don't remember like some of the middle parts of the split. This guy was consistent the whole time. I'm with you. I think he got snobbed.
and then also Tarzan, I like the fact that he's finally potentially winning a split and is a favorite in the finals. Like, God bless. It's been too close too many times. And we were
Yeah.
there watching all the LNG splits, that he was dominating with Scout for so long. I was like, oh, is this really it? Is this really it? And then it just never was. Those series that went to 5 games, especially like in like the JDG series, like that year, Scout and Tarzan were just like so insane, but everyone just remembered him for falling so flat against T1 at the World Championship, where they just like kind of choked in that mid jungle situation against T1. But it's like T1 beat them, it is what it is. Like T1 beat them. I don't want to sell short everything they accomplished
I feel
leading
like
up to
for
it.
both Tarzan and fucking Scout, there are so many casual fans. That's just the series they're thinking of when they say those players suck in at Yamato. Like, you can tell because when they start describing them, I want to tell them, like, that's like the only series where they ever played like that. Like, they were fucking amazing domestically, these guys. I'm with you though, because here's the problem. Like, if you look at his career, I know what you mean about the Shanks angle. It's why I always tell people, I actually think what happened to KC, because they looked like they were going to fuck up initially, but they didn't, is really, really positive. Because the players I've known that are the great players, I always give this example about Upset, but you can include it with Forgiven and certain other people. I actually do think if you're really talented, but you have like, not just like troubled early years, but you have the years where it's like you have a massive failure, like Cream did, etc. internationally, those are like fucking war scars, mate. People carry that shit with them for years, and they might even not know it themselves, but you can tell when they get back in that scenario, it's like PTSD. They just go back into that like fight or flight or the nervousness or something. And I feel like those wounds, like if you take too many of them early on, there's not many people overcome that, mate. So in a weird way, you really do need like these up and coming talents to sort of hit the ground running immediately. Like I think it's super good for Kalista that he didn't bomb out in last place at first stand or something like because I do think at this point in time, Cream has that like cursed quality where it's like, he's had it too many times, mate. Like that's why no one believes in him. Sorry, like everyone. That's why the joke is even the LPL was hating on him eventually. Didn't want these guys to go west. I don't feel that at all with anyone's legend. And then you throw in as well, they've just got this fresh quality to them. Also, by the way, I just love the way they play the game. I actually think the way they play is awesome as well. I think it's going to catch some of these teams in the West by surprise potentially.
It's also like I've never been like a super big Flandre fan. Like I was a fan of him maybe like in his early years, and I thought like he was one of those players that figured out how to play a very specific niche to then get carried to, of course, like a world championship. But this year, it's like one of the best years ever for Flandre because he's so strong in his role. Obviously, in like that Camille and Bessa situation, I don't want to see him in, but whenever he was put in the positions where he was playing in isolation, like that Yori game was insane, or like this Kisante game where like they're trying to dive him for like 3 minutes straight and he just understands when to go, when to not go. Like Flandre is really classy and it's basically in my mind how people viewed like 369 in the sense for his role on the JDG roster. I think he's playing fight super well and understands what he needs to contribute to the game and make sure that like these carry top laners in the LPL never get too strong to dominate the game outside of course the Ambessa game. But he needs to have some flaws, otherwise it would be too unfair. And then finally, on the topic of Bilibili, I think this was a very clear showing of often it's like the community is going to look at like, oh, one player joined the team and now everyone's playing better again. It's like usually the differences are very small. Like one player can definitely it's easier to be the reason you lose than to stay neutral. I think a lot of people that are watching games underestimate how good you need to be a neutral presence in like the highest level of gameplay within your league. It's like it's much easier to be the problem than the solution, and even harder to carry games. Yes. And I think that Beishuan, he's solid. I think in a lot of the series that Bilibili played leading up to this, he like was just okay. I think he had a good Skarner game today. But I think you can clearly see like the class difference if you just look across all 5 games, how much better a player like Tarzan is over Beishuan. Because in the end, like Beishuan doesn't have experience playing at this high of a level, so deep into playoffs. And I think in the end, I think that the ceiling of this team is definitely going to be held back by how good Beishuan is. So in terms of the potential, The fact that AO, some of the players are cracking new ceilings, I'm super excited for what they're going to bring to MSI, because the conversation, LCK versus LPL, is getting spicier and spicier. A lot of pressure on Genji, of course. And the fact is, Anyone's Legends actually going through like resistance. They're actually they're playing a BO5, went to 5 games, and then most likely going to play against Bilibili in a final again. Like, that is good experience, while Genji maybe just smoke one BO5, go 3-0, and then go in pretty, let's say, fresh and dry without like actually being stained by blood. Their armor is too shiny coming into MSI.
Well, yeah, another thing as well to throw in there is I actually also think it's really important that you get someone like Tarzan to go to MSI, because, bro, one of the other factors for me as to why TES and Anyone's Legend were the 2 best LPL teams is they're the 2 best junglers. A lot of other teams, jungles the troublesome position where, it's a bit one-dimensional, or in the case of BLG, they're just using like sort of like a fill player almost at this point in time. It's not the player they chose to have. Like, Tarzan and Kanavi were the best junglers in the regular split. So the fact that Tarzan gets to go is big for me. Like, if you want teams to not fail, you don't want to send fucking like up and down junglers. Like, we don't even know yet how fucking Beishwan will do when he gets there. By the way, on the BLG topic, if we talk about that a little bit. By the way, one last thing actually about Anyone's Legend. One last other thing I'll say is I haven't shouted about much because unsurprisingly, over past years, I was never a fan of this guy when he was on fucking whatever it was, Nongshim years ago, whatever. The Kale guy has fucking leveled his game up so much this year, it's crazy as well, Yamato. Like, this guy's gotten way better. Like, I thought that Braum game was pretty slick, actually. Like, I normally hate it when you have like the Korean import that's not a big name. This guy's earned it. He's actually playing really well. But on the BLG side, right, the obvious thing to say, Yamato, bearing in mind, there's a very good chance they can still go to MSI too. I think if you look who's in the low bracket, we'll do the Copium on IG, but it should be BLG that wins it. The problem I have is this, Yamato. It is the way the game 5 played out. Like, BLG has like some Fnatic shit, mate, where it's like, oh yeah, they have skilled players that can knock you straight out. But mate, when they're behind like that, I never have any hope they can get back in the game. Like in that game 5, if you go like 15 minutes in the game, it's basically over. Like, they're trying stuff, but I have questions about this teams like Macro. They don't seem like they're going to play from behind to be some masterclass. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I by contrast, Zach, if I imagine this Bilibili variant going up against Hanwha Life or Genji, I feel like Genji and Hanwha Life will just be able to like set the pacing of the game and like just choose the fights that they participate in. Because Bilibili is very barbaric in their approach to the game. Like, I think, especially like that game 5, there were so many moments where like Renekton snaps, Akali. There was never a fight where they're all on the same page. It just seems like it's like radio silence almost in terms of how they play. They look like almost unpracticed, like good individually, but unpracticed in a way. And you don't get away with shit like that against a team of course, Anyone's Legend. You could do that against Toby Esports. But I think, Thorin, before we talk about the stank, I need to talk to the viewers about how they can also stay fresh. Same way I stay fresh, the same way you stay fresh, because I keep smelling like Mount Fuji, because I use Mando products. Whole body deodorant, this is something that I wish I had grown up, because, before you went to those parties, where, like growing up, I was in high school, went to parties, you kind of, you're there looking at the mirror, you're thinking to yourself, you need to prepare for any scenario, you don't know where you're going to end up in. And you look at your deal stick and you're like, oh, this is probably poisonous. I'm going to put this on my balls, in preparation for any scenario. But here Mando is with whole body deodorant products, that you can just put on anywhere between your pits, your balls, your thigh folds, belly button if for some reason you're that freaky, your grundle, why not, Created by a doctor, because he just saw firsthand that normal BO is just being misdiagnosed and mistreated. This is clinically proven. Mando product clinically proven to just control and block odor for up to 72 hours, which is crazy. Because sometimes, those parties I talked about, sometimes you wake up in a foreign location, boom, hangover style, hangover 2 style. I mentioned it before, you woke up in Mike Tyson's pool, Tiger walks up to you, Mike Tyson comes up to you, he's like, what are you doing in my pool? Oh, damn, you smell good. Welcome. Have some breakfast. And you like this, you can be ready for absolutely anything. So in my mind, I don't know what you're waiting for. All the products, everyone's talking about all these things that poison our body and so forth, which I think is a super good thing. It's very important to be health conscious. All the products come baking soda free and paraben free, which is super, super crucial. I mentioned the flavor or the smell, Mount Fuji. You can be bourbon leather. You can be clover woods. Maybe that's the one that I'm going to order next, because that sounds refreshing somehow.
Yeah.
And you know, if you don't have the Mando, you know, products just yet, you can use our code, of course. You know, what is the code, Thorin?
Summoning.
I don't see it.
Summoning.
The code is summoning. Damn, the code is summoning.
Easy to remember.
Easy to remember. Mando starter pack is perfect for new customers. It comes with a solid stick deodorant, cream 2 deodorant, 2 free products of your choice. I usually get the deodorant wipes because you can just keep them on the go, keeping them in your bag. You go gym. Gives you also free shipping. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off starter pack with our exclusive code that equates to over 40% off your starter pack. Use code summoning at shopmando.com. That is SHOPMANDO.com. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando. Now we're ready to talk about the stinky of the LPL. All the stinky.
Sure.
Where do we go first, Thorin?
I'll tell you what we do first. I'll give you a segue. If you were to wake up and there was just a tiger there, and then you wanted to clean up and get rid of all that mess, you could be like IG, who took care of Tiger King, Zhao Hu, and Weibo Gaming. Bit of a tenuous link there, but see what I did there? Because, bro, do you know what, Yamato? Right? I'll do the thing where I'll go delusional, but then I'll bring it back to reality with some lucidity. So delusional is like, y'all were talking shit. IG's here, motherfucker, top 4. WE, mate, it's not the 2010s. They're going to win that game, so that's top 3 at least. And then let's not even get to maybe they could be in the final. That would be something, wouldn't it? But the problem is this. They haven't actually beaten anyone good. All they did is beat Weibo. And I don't even myself still understand how Weibo was even at that point in the tournament. Like, Weibo should have lost to JDG, should have been over. So they haven't really beaten anyone really good yet, Yamato. But with that said, what's really happened is a bunch of teams have fallen away in the LPL. We only have a couple that are actually good. And I have to say, right now, unless Team W, who fair play, they have punched above their weight this split, but unless they pull off a miracle, IG's going to be top 3. They're probably going to be 3rd. But tell you what, to beat one series away from MSI, I think is better than most people said. Look, I can only reference, I don't know actually what other people power rank, but I do know Dom did hit on IG. I think he had him like fucking 5th or something there. Like, a lot of people thought, because understandably, people thought JDG should be better. Obviously, you look, TS should be way better, of course. So on paper, they weren't ever supposed to be in this position. And it's not like they did beat those teams. But hey, listen, mate. 3rd is 3rd. If they get to 3rd, I'm still going to be fucking insufferable on Twitter. You know, I'm going to do that thing. It's all good. So what do you think? IG's run, bro. It's sort of. And here's the other thing, Yamato. Here's why it's actually sort of legit as a run. Because first of all, if people don't know, this isn't biased. Rocky actually has been pretty good the majority of the split. I would say like 3 out of every 4 games he plays well. And by the way, a couple of them he just does a carry game. The Shy's been on and off, but actually he's been more... Here's the thing. People used to say he was a coin flip player. At least he actually does turn up half the time now. He's actually pretty legit. JJ's actually fucking smiting things. Bro, if you've been following the split, this is big news, mate. This is some... JJ has actually hit smite. Sir, JJ just hit a second smite in the game. George Bush. Anyway, but that's not just it, Yamato. The last thing I have to say, and this is some really big news. If you haven't watched the LPL this split, this is enormous news. Bro, Gala is actually back. Gala is actually back. That's actually probably one of the most disappointing things. I talk about Mako because he hinted, but Gala actually hasn't been particularly good this split, mate. Like, I used to think that guy was a fairly consistent player. You could always rely on him. He was really good in the scout teams. If you go back to RNG, obviously, like, IG's kind of like coming online at the right time. What do you think about this squad then? Come on.
It's like IG, you know, the biggest quality that I've always said that they had, like a very positive quality, is that they seemed so like relentless, you know? It's like at no point did I think, oh, this team is mentally broken. It just seemed like within the same game, they could play very bad and also insanely good. They were never like shook by any situation.
They are the go next team. That's true. Like, you're right. They don't like sit and get depressed at the end of the game. They just go to the next game. You're right. It's sort of true.
Like they seem to like bounce back super quick. Yeah. They seem painfully aware of some of the players that they have on the team. It's like when Mako runs it, or the Shy does something goofy, or JJ doesn't smite. It's like, well, that's what it is. You see the coach cam reaction. You know, Danny also knows what he signed up for, and I think that's the coolest part of this, because it's like around them. It's like if we look at some of these other teams, it's like top esports, JDG. It's like they seem so mentally fragile that you just don't know where you're gonna have him. While IG is inconsistent, they're at least inconsistent in their own way, you know? They're in their own way.
I never thought about this, Yamato. Like, obviously, like everyone, I had my own criticism of Danny and some of the teams he's in. I mean, I've made the joke before. The name's a little bit too close to deny, and he does join Giant Orgs and then deny them championships, deny them worlds, etc. But I will say, if you look at the Orgs he joined, Yamato, bro, this guy must be another victim of the cursed monkey paw, because it's like he got to the cursed monkey paw, and all he did with his wishes is, I want to be a coach of, fuck it, what would be the best team? Tell you what, I want to be a coach of all world champions. Give me T1, I'll take Dam 1, and I'll have IG. And it's like, your wish is granted. Like, no, they're the good teams. No, they're really good lineups. And then he just gets all these nightmare fuel lineups that like don't quite work, you know. Like even the T1 one was when it was all like the 10 players, etc. Like this guy can't get a break, can he? He actually does join all the real legendary Orgs, just not on the year when they're really fucking sick. Like, yeah, I tell you what, he must just like a challenge, this guy. Because I tell you what, I agree with you. In this game, it's like when people play with Hitlersang and Razork, they don't at the end of the game on cam go, what were you doing there? They go, it's fucking Hitlersang and Razork. You know what? Let's just load up again. You could even imagine, Yamato, them doing some sort of like, you know, gentle parenting techniques in the VOD review. Like you don't even mention my name, the guy, you just go like, we were having a bit of a trouble with our Sejuani in the fight, so we've got to kind of help them get into a balance. You can totally imagine them doing that, you know, with Mako or whatever, because I agree with you. Like, if you, IG, luckily, I know what you mean. If you followed the 2 splits this year, you just know who's going to int in these games. Like, you can just see it. So I think, I agree. In a weird way, that's actually a positive quality about it. They don't collapse. They kind of do just go, hey, there's still another game in the series. Load up the next one. Maybe we'll be good in that one. That helps. That does help, mate.
And their opponent, like Weibo, it's like Weibo showed a little bit of quality, in terms of like how good they played macro and how they put themselves into position. But it's like in this game, it's like, oh, we are not mechanically good enough to win.
No.
we just don't have the firepower.
At the moment, mate. Yeah, they still have top players at the moment. Like you look on paper, they still have good names, but like these aren't the best splits for these players. Everyone's just kind of all right. I don't think they're bad, but they're just all right at the moment, you know.
I'm just angry that Zhao blocked the Tian move, because Tian into Billy would have been like,
that'd be sexy,
that would have been good, because Tian needs to be surrounded by players with some firepower, because it's like in terms of the setups, Weibo are good. They had some issues with their support situation. They also fired their coach. But in the end, it's like there were so many situations in this series in particular where it's like, oh, Weibo should win this fight, but they don't.
Yes.
Because they're not good enough.
Do you know what I just realized? That's how I know you know what? Watching the LPL just makes you sick in the end, Yamato. Like, it actually makes you become infected with whatever they've got. Because I should think of Tian, and myself think of the time he went with Knight and Top Esports and the fucked up Worlds group. I should think of the time he went with like that 2021 when he's bombed the groups in FPX. But you know what's sad? I would still press the button and do it again and bring him back to BLG. I'll just put him next to Knight again. Fuck it, let's just go again. Because I sort of do believe, mate. I know what you mean. That, by the way, that would also just be a sexy fucking pairing. Imagine him with those solo learners, he'd cook, wouldn't he?
No, for sure. 100%. As a follow-up now with IG, it's like I think like you were certain that they beat WE, but I think this is where they lose. I think they can lose to WE,
Come
man.
on.
Like WE's got that MKOI magic, don't you think? Like, I got their own version of Elioya Alvaro.
I'll give you that. They're definitely more than the sum of their parts. Like, they're not a bad team, certainly.
I think they just play like super cohesive. They really give me like the MKOI vibes. It's like everyone's on the same page about the decisions. I think Taeyun and Kari suddenly turn into like decent players. I watched these guys play in LCK.
They were memes. But they actually now they give them credit. Bro, I mean, we'll talk about them in a second. They actually did legitimately beat the fucking TS bot lane. Like, what do you want to say? Like, that's real. That happened. That was real. I was there. I was watching it. Should we do it? Should we talk about fucking TES?
We have to.
Come on, bro. Like, this is the thing. In some ways, if you're going to fail, good, do it now. Don't waste my fucking time winning the LPL first, then go to MSI. But what a bummer, because genuinely, I want to tell people, right up until before the playoffs, this just was the best LPL team. Like, the eye test showed it, the record showed it, the head-to-head, everything did, mate. Everything actually looked like, on paper. It's why we've spent all these episodes trying to tell people, now, don't take what you've seen internationally and apply it to this team domestically. It's a different squad. Maybe this is different. The problem is, at the end in the playoffs, it's like this time they didn't even wait till MSI to fucking fail. Like, what's going on? Like, I can't believe... here's the thing about it. If you told me they don't win the split, that's plausible. The idea they come like 5th to 6th, it's like, what? That's not even possible. That's not even on the table. That should literally... And then again, it's not like they didn't even lose to the top teams. Bro, they lost to fucking... what do you call it? On the Austrian
Billy.
BLG, that was fine. That was okay. But this WE one is unforgivable because they were supposed to be the best team. Come on, what happened? What's gone wrong for TS? What malfunction happened?
I have to call out like Jakob. We've been playing for quite some time. Like I think he had like the Lucian Ezra game was like fine, but like Jakob has not been the player that he's supposed to be this year. But I think someone that deserves heavy criticism because like there's not even champions that I really feel excited about with Cream. Because in the past it was like, oh, he locks Akali, he locks this, he locks Yon, there's gonna be Cream time, and then it's like he locks Yon, and it just looks kind of pathetic almost. I don't know what's going on there.
Got fucked over by, if you think about the last year or so, Yon used to be that like niche pick, then everyone played it last year. Now that everyone plays it, he's not a special player. He used to be the god of like essentially he was like the fucking Chinese leader. There's your reference. You can't let that one. If you put him on those champions, he was fucking sick. Now everyone's better than him on his own champion. I'm with you, mate. He used to be a demon on Yon.
Oh, it's so strange to watch what has happened with Cream. Like I thought that what we saw at like first stand was something that he could be like he could just shake off, but I feel like it just continued in a very, very similar fashion and trajectory. He had like games that were off, and we kind of just accepted it that they would just bounce back when it came to the playoffs because Top Esports did make that mega run in winter through the lower bracket where backs against the walls they actually played better. But this time around, I think in terms of like the drafts, there was like that Aurora, Lilia, Jace, Senna, Tamkenj game. There was a little bit all over the place. That game 5, I don't know if 369 just looked out in the crowd and just thought, I'm gonna do everybody out there, all the fans of LPL, a favor. I'm gonna take us out. I'm gonna take us out early and make sure that we don't go on international.
Think about how powerful in the LPL the names 369 and Canavi are. These guys run the LPL Yamato. The idea they're losing to Cuban Monkey. What even is this? What the fuck is this? This is like some bizarro world shit. How's it possible?
And then just Taeyun and Vampire, they're playing Nico, Caitlyn, it's something super, super scary to just slam in a game 5 and they just drop it. 50 CS lead against the Lucian Nami of Crisp and Jackie Love. It's like the name recognition. It's like, especially for you and me, we give players that have those legendary careers, legendary years, we give them a lot of credit. They get a lot of like leash, they get to throw away a series or two, for example. Now, like Caps just lost, I'm not gonna fucking throw him under the bus and say he should be replaced, it's all good. But these guys, the fuse has burnt all the way through for some of these guys. Jackie Love, Cream, that is rough. And Kanavi, even though he had like some rough performances, I kind of sympathize with his position because I do feel like their games that Top Esports are playing the best is when he was playing like carry junglers. And it just seemed like he was looking at the game through the lens of that. Like he's trying to compensate for the fact that his teammates are underperforming because Kanavi still had like, for example, the Nafiri game which just took over completely.
Oh, the first one he smurfed, yeah.
And I think if he maybe was put into more positions where he was playing something like a carry instead of, for example, like the Sejuani with the Cream Yon, I think that maybe he could have been a difference maker. So it's like Kanavi is like the last one I'm going to blame on this team, even though in some of those games he was playing supportive champions, he wasn't performing super, super well. Because, for example, like that Skana game was like insanely desperate in terms of the ganks he was trying to set up. But I think that's just his state of mind in the context of his teammates. So I give him the pass for this because I think the things around him were just on fire.
No, I mean, look, I'll give mad props to Team WE, but at the same time, Top Esports gets the fucking assist. Like, I can't, like, even in the series, bro, when they're up 2-1, it's like, surely you're going to win the series. Like, look, you can make it 5 games, make it messy if you want, but at the end, you do win. Like, because my problem is this, you're trying to plant the seed, the toxic seed that WE can beat fucking IG. Well, you know what, mate? Fuck you then. If they can beat IG, maybe they can beat BLG too, then you ain't going to the final, possible.
Could be, man.
I know it's how magically you pulled back on BLG there. Why? Why can't they beat BLG?
I think, in terms of like, they're like baby anyone's legend, these guys,
Okay.
It's like, I think Cube is very good in his niche, right? It's like when he plays the tanks, it's the same thing with like a little bit less depth than Flandre, I would say. I think that Monkey and Vampire, like Monkey, he has like his trundle games where he knows how to pressure through the game. I think that in terms of like all of these players simultaneously are just reaching new absolute highs. But at the same time,
I refuse. I refuse. I refuse to believe fucking Breon Karras is actually a good player. I'm sorry. He's not beating Rookie and fucking Knight and then going to the finals of the LPL. Get the fuck out of this server right now. Listen, you can believe it all you want, me, but listen, till it happens, I'm not going to believe it. I'm going to live in denial. There's no way.
The main thing.
Karras!
We mentioned,
this is you know what this is? This is like when fucking Fisher went from the other way, from the LPL to the LCK, then he was just good suddenly. Like, what? You shouldn't even be allowed to play. You're garbage. Like, I don't know how he's doing it, mate. Fair play that he's doing it, but holy fuck, this is like some Cinderella run for me.
On the flip side, it's like IG played against some like bad opponents to get to this point. You could also argue that WE also like dunked on teams that just were caught up in a shitstorm. Right. It's like JDG and top esports. If I just remove all the context, from how they played like 2 weeks ago when JDG were just like, damn, JDG are the GOATs. Damn.
Oh no, these two teams were absolutely top 4 before these losses. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
But if there was no nameplates and I would just look at that series, it wouldn't be possible for me to guess that that's top esports and JDG. It's like some details. Sure, it's like, oh, that might be missing. He sometimes plays like ass. That's possible. Or missing. I could see Pace being like elo held. I could see that. Or Scout underperformed. Oh, maybe I could read between the lines. But as like World Elites, I feel like they just like IG and WE. I think both of them really, really, due to circumstance around them, got here, right? But that's just what competition is. It's like you're running a race blindly. You don't know what the distance is going to be. You don't know if your opponent's going to fall over and keel over, and you just like sprinted and realize, oh, there's nobody at the end here. And but WE, IG is like they just managed to catch this blunder of the other teams. I think World Elite still super cool that they are playing so cohesive. I think they are dangerous in the sense that I think if you're on equal footing in terms of like, let's say the game's an even state and you're about to fight a Drake 3, I think that this is where W will lose. But I think they're very creative in terms of how they get ahead. And I think that they are very good at like carrying water to one another. It's like, if they realize that this bot lane matchup is what is the most dynamic and most important, the level 3 ganks come through, the roams come through, and they know how to drive the game through one another. And that happens on jungle, that happens on bot, that happens on mid, and Cube is just playing in isolation. I think for the meta, that's like perfect. Like tanks have made like a massive resurgence, playing in isolation top. Massive resurgence too, and when Gwen is out of the picture, there's very little you can really do to break tanks out of top. So in terms of where WE is in terms of the current patch, I think they're in a very, very good spot, and they've managed to like really capture lightning in a bottle.
Also, just like imagine being that team. Like they're living a fucking movie right now, Yamato. I've just beaten Scout, then fucking like Jackie Love, and then I'm going now against like fucking Rookie in the Shine. And if I win that game, I get to play Bin. And like this must be fucking insane for them. Like fair play, they are the underdog, but they've been living up to it. We have to talk about this JDG angle, Yamato. Right? I will point out again. If you tell me this was the team that fired their coach mid-split, that's not that surprising. They're underwhelming. But if you actually saw they played after they fired him, this doesn't make any sense at all, Yamato. Like the craziest thing about JDG was, if you remember, they had that like fucking crazy win over like TS or something like right out of nowhere. Like what the fuck? Like this team would still have like crazy punching power. You even look at the All Pro, dude. Didn't they give like Pace like first team All Pro or something? Like they had some people were giving respect to these players. I think Arley at the end of the split was pretty good. Like yes, by the way, I'm with you. Scout was definitely up and down. I almost feel like maybe past, name value just got him that like spot on there, because I'm with you. I thought you had his down page to split, otherwise it would have been better. But the idea you come last in the playoffs, that was not even on my fucking bingo card, mate. For me, I would have said bad for this team would be like 4th or 5th worst. Like the idea he could be last place. How?
It's like the final series that JDG played, the regular split, was them completely blasting anyone's legend.
Yeah.
It was like we had like that final week. We thought that it looked like top esports anyone's legends going to be like the top ones, and then top esports lose to Bilibili, and AL lose to JDG. And I was like, oh, the top 4. We had the episode, we talk about the top 4, but JDG, it's like it's beyond explanation. I really, really don't know how you can jump from that performance to this performance, I don't think that the patch changed super much.
Swear you might. It was BLG I was thinking of. In the regular split, guys, this team went 4-0 in series against anyone's legend of BLG. Currently, the two best teams. Like, they just beat them all like that. This is mental. This is mental, bro. What a mad underperformance. This is one of the worst like playoff failures I've seen ever in the LPL.
Oh, this was such a massive drop off. It's like to isolate the players. I think Missing played atrociously bad. I think Scout also had like a very bad series, but I think like their opposition didn't really bring anything like crazy to the table that justifies, you know, JDG's just ending. I think for me it's unexplainable. Like it had to be something internal, had to be something like, I don't know, like if it comes out that all were food poison or some shit, I wouldn't be surprised. Like there has to be some underlining story here that we are just completely missing, and maybe the Chinese broadcast brought up or something. I don't know, because this fall off is crazy. Like considering they had the coach change a long time ago, as you mentioned, there's no way it's tied into that. There has to be some secret explanation. I hope somebody in the comments, like some insider, you know, has some inside information. Maybe someone climbs a tree and looks into their office. You know, I don't know. There has to be something.
By the way, if people don't know, he's actually referencing a real thing that did happen. If you remember, like on social media, they posted all pictures and they were like, "Get James in the house." Look, like on some crazy like K-pop stand
like
level.
Like
yeah, it was fucking disturbing, wasn't it? I know. Like that's how they found out. I remember. No, the other thing as well, I'll throw in as well. But mate, it's like I said on Twitter because I thought I framed it well in my like esports historian role, bro. When you are watching Missing play these series, I need you to remember this guy was one like 2 series wins from a perfect season with 0 best-of-5 losses. Like, you would never believe that was the same player, mate. I mean, he had a down year anyway after that, where him and Ruler didn't look as good, but this is terrible. Like, look, I will say, he has done that classic thing. Don't call yourself fucking Missing and then literally just disappear in playoff matches. Like, you did that, mate. That's a bit too on the nose. But there's also the factor that, like, mate, it's not even like, even on his Ricard, he's not that great anymore. Like this guy, yeah, he was a bit more like specialist, but he was really good when he was playing that squad, mate. Like he complemented the rest of the team really awesome. He's doing dope in team fights. Like something's happened to this guy. I don't know what, because he's not living up to the name value at all. I mean, he has a great resume, but what do you want? This is bad.
And also, so like speaking of narratives, it's like Hope and Missing had a similar come up, right? JDG 2022. This was like the one where they lost like the Lucianami Lulu matchups against, of course, T1 in at the World Championship. And then it was like Hope just got replaced by Ruler after being also replaced by Viper. It's like Hope has been through like the ringer and through the shit. And now it's like Hope is in a position where literally there's no one in China that you would want to replace him with. That's how well he's fucking playing right now. And Missing now just after having that insane year on JDG, of course 2023 is just been like worse and worse and worse. There was like that magic at least where you knew when he locked in Rakan that he would just take over. Yep. I think that in this season I really I like the games where he played like Nico. There were like some standout moments where Missing was looking good, but it's just he just seems so almost immature in his gameplay, where at this point where you've played so many years, I kind of expect a player to be able to recognize patterns in terms of knowing how to be like effective in the game. And Missing just has series and also games where he just looks inexperienced, which is very, very strange. It kind of puts, I put him in the same kind of mind, almost like the Razork problem, where it's like, yo, you played for so long. At some point you need to know how to like just win games, cookie cutter games, winning these positions that you've been in now for the 100th time. And I feel like Missing just like he performs sometimes like I would expect the new Weibo support era to perform, because he just doesn't have experience.
Also, I want to ask you this question, even though obviously it's a loaded question because anyone Legends in the final already, but who wins the LPL? There's still enough teams left. Put your pick down. Who wins the LPL?
No, anyone's Legend is just the easy prediction, right? That's like, especially with what we saw. I think even though the series went to 5, I think that the mistake that anyone's Legend did to pick Ambassa blind 1-2 into a player that wants to play Camille and Jax, this is not a mistake that happens twice. And I think anyone's Legend have shown enough depth in jungle and also in super role that I think that they can go deep into series. I think that even though it was a 5-game series, I think anyone's Legend was much better today. And I think the comfort of sitting and waiting there for the final, considering how condensed LPL is, I don't think it's going to be like a pain point. Like I don't think it's going to be the same as G2. They just had to like sit out a week before they played their finals. So I think anyone's Legends going to take it home.
I'm with you, actually. Even though, if you remember, last year I went the opposite. Actually, we both ticked top esports. Like, even though anyone's Legends was in the final, if you remember, that was where it's like they were doing 5-game series against an IP. It was really hard work. The difference is, I don't think there is like a top esports equivalent. Like, BLG look like they should make the final, but mate, BLG, I actually think the fact they 3-0'd IG in top esports is a little bit deceptive. Like, first of all, top esports played like absolute shit in that series. Like, they should have won at least one game in that one, mate. Like, I think it was game 2, maybe they had like almost in the bag. And then the IG series, like IG wasn't terrible, but the difference is that was where like fucking On had his glow up and started to play good again. Bin actually did just legit like play some fucking great League of Legends against the Shy. Like, this isn't the BLG of past splits. I know they have gotten like back online, and certainly they're good. Like, by the way, the base run swap has done something. But again, this reminds me of the Jun swap at Worlds. It's not that he's actually necessarily better than the previous jungler. It's about like, what's the vibe in the team? Like, how does it fit us? How does it fit the style? Like, they've got a style, but I think it's way more sort of like black and white now, mate. Like, the real problem I have with BLG is I don't know what the average performance is in a game. You know what I mean? Whereas actually, if anyone's Legend, that would be the number one thing I'd say about them, bro. The floor level of anyone's Legend is very impressive. Like, I feel like they play a 7 out of 10 game every game minimum. That's where you start. Whereas BLG, like, you don't know. They can have a 4 out of 10 game, then they can have an 8 out of 10 game. Like, because the problem is, the games where they smash you, you think they are going to win the fucking LPL again. You're like, they're back. And I know, by the way, I know this is like a job angle, but I agree with it. Part of you does think, no matter what scuffed quality they're in, this is the team I want to send to MSI, because I know that you can put Knight on a Galio and he'll have like a fucking good game. I know you can give Bin a Jackson and might get like an 8 kill. These things I can rely upon, whereas we all know we were scared of the top esports. So the question is, like, what do you think the formula is for BLG to win? Do you think they can still win the split?
The tricky thing is, it's like they are relying in the way they play too much on individual performances. And even though Knight and Bin have been like decent and solid, I don't think they're like good enough in their consistency right now to just hammer out like wins on demand. Like I don't think the meta is in that place. I think everyone's targeting, for example, Bin's Gwen, and he's out here playing champions like Rumble. Like Rumble Bin doesn't excite me. Today he played Jace, he had a good game, but that doesn't excite me. That's not what I know him to like just 1v9 games with, because that's what they require. And the Camille game, I think, was super, super good, but no one's gonna invite like a good Camille angle for him ever again. Like that's just not gonna happen. And I think that's just the main issue. I think that Knight and Bin, when they're on their A game, like to invite that is too specific. And even today, when they played like the Ahri, that wasn't even a free win. It's like Knight playing Ahri with a Vi. If this was last year, it would be like, oh, he's just gonna collect another victory with his 32 wins, 2 loss record, or whatever ridiculous thing it was back then. And he was like on some 28 win streak or some shit. Like now he just doesn't have that same aura. I don't think it's the same thing anymore. And that's the level they need to perform at to actually like win. And if you come into a series, you know, the danger of Bilibili was that they could attack you from every angle. It's like, oh, you want to isolate Bin and his champion pool, that's going to pay dividends somewhere else. And I don't think that On and Elk are necessarily better. Like, I don't think they're better at all than anyone's Legend bot lane. So the gain you get from the targeting on these players is not going to show up in some greater form, because that's what made Bilibili so damn good in the past, is that they just had 3 lanes that were just too insane. So they could always cover for any bans that the enemy threw at you. And this is just not where Bilibili is at right now. I think if they go to MSI, I think they're going to be like the 4th best team out of course, all the teams, because both you and I are smart enough to know that LEC and LTA ain't doing shit to the top 4.
No. This isn't the year to dream about that, guys. It's the year to enjoy the domestic rivalries and all, you know, the back and forth.
Yes.
And new players going and getting their chance to test themselves on the international stage. Exactly, all that jazz, mate. That's all that shit. No, on the BLG angle, like, the good news is this. The bot lane did level up as the playoffs began. Like, they definitely got better than they were in the split, but they're certainly not what they were last year or even in the winter when the people were fucking loving them. And one of my problems as well, this is the reason why if IG plays them, I don't think IG will win. It's like, IG still has problems where every game you go in and go, right, jungle and support, who's actually going to play well? And by the way, at the moment, the answer still for Mako is almost never. He just almost never plays well, I'm afraid. Like, he looked shit in that fucking series against BLG. I thought he looked fucking disgraceful, mate. Like, as I've mentioned a million times, that's so jarring to me because I do think this is like one of the all-time great players. Like, not even just an all-time great Chinese. This like is a guy who's contender for best support player to ever play League of Legends. But holy fuck, is this a bad year? Like, this year's just so gross. Like, for real, it's one of those ones where I'll never say people should retire, Mark, because I think that's a personal decision. And if you're a great player, I don't want you to retire. I just think teams shouldn't sign you if you're not good. But mate, if he had have retired at the end of last year, his career would be remembered very differently than it will be after this year, unfortunately. Like, this makes him look like a fraud, and he definitely wasn't. But the difference is, I in the past have been critical of On. Mate, he looks way better so far in the playoffs. Like, at least he actually's doing On shit. Like, he's doing those like decisive fucking moves that make it exciting. Because if you're gonna have players with hands and you're gonna have macro issues, you better have some fucking engages. You better have a player who can make something happen in the game.
No, I'm with you. Mako definitely like big pain point. I don't know what's going on there. It kind of reminds me of like the main quote. It's like either play
So
good
this
or
might sound
retire.
mad because when someone has name value like that, I don't want to think it. But this is the LPL, mate. Would you consider replacing him for summer? Like, if we could bring in, it doesn't have to be big. If we could bring in a decent support player, would you replace him? Wouldn't it make this team better? I know it sounds bad to say, but I'm thinking it has to.
We just plunder WE. We just replace Mako with Vampire.
What a world. The sentence being said out loud is gross. I know it's funny. Well, the joke here is, we'll make it worse. They can replace him with fucking Vampire or Kale, and that would actually be an upgrade. Fucking year is this? I'm on Jumanji or something. What year is this? Wait, Mako's bad compared to them. Fuck hell, what a world. But that is reality. That is the LPL now, boys. That is the LPL.
So you're predicting IG to beat WE, yeah?
Here's the thing. I actually think, sadly, that the results will go as they should now. I think what will happen is IG... Oh, I'll give you... IG will win 3-1. They'll still lose a game. There'll be a game where JJ just plays like shit or something like that. Or the Shy has like 3 ints in lane. They'll win 3-1. Then they'll play BLG. They'll probably lose 3-1 or 3-0 to BLG. Because sadly, I think BLG will just hand... By the way, I think the downside of that series is those are two teams just willing to use hands, and BLG has better hands. So I think that's not a great one for you. And then the final is interesting to me, though. If it ends up being BLG, the reason the final gets interesting is the one factor for anyone's edging is they did come from the upper bracket last year, last split and not win. So you can have that angle. And also, I do think an underrated thing, I think it's the same thing with G2, is it's not even about the level the players are at now. I do think there is a fact, essentially, Yamato, I do believe in the concept that like names have an impact in the server. Like I always say in Counter-Strike, it doesn't matter how good Simple is. When you play Simple and your teammates are getting killed and the kill feed is like Simple, kill, headshot, that's intimidating. It really is, in a way that it isn't for other names. Like, I think if you are the guys from anyone's edging, especially the Shankses and the Hopes of the world, and then you're going up against like fucking Knight and Bin, all these monster names, like that's intimidating. Like those guys, the difference is, put it this way, if this is a movie, that's the kid who's supposed to be the champion, and you're just the fucking karate kid trying to crane kick this motherfucker. Like, hey, of course he's supposed to be the champion. He's all 6'4", blonde hair, looks good, popular kid. That's fucking Knight and Bin, they're supposed to win every split. So that's the only factor, though. I do think if anyone's edging, actually holds their nerve. Last split, no, I don't think they were ready. This split is it. This is the one. This is time now to actually become just the champion, which, by the way, I will personally find very satisfying. I'm a massive Tarzan fan. I think it'd be awesome to see him win a championship finally. And I even think to myself, wouldn't that be the perfect way to put this whole choking narrative behind? Win the regular split, by the way, beating people like Knight and fucking being in best of it, and then go to MSI and actually be good. Get that monkey off your back, as it were.
And additionally, I think Billy right now, I don't think they're actively... Like individually, they're finding like form better more and more, but I don't think they are like finding a lot of growth out of these series. I think they're like in band-aid mode. Like they're trying to like get into the next series as good as possible. But I think that this is a very, very different circumstance. I don't think they're finding additional depth. I think they are just revealing more and more. And I don't think that they will find any additional layer of gameplay by like plowing through either WE or IG. So I think that's like a very, very crucial difference than the last one. And it's like the last time we saw like that series that qualified AL to the finals, it was them playing against JDG. And even in that series, I did think JDG played better than AL. Yes. It was just Tabe just kind of just completely masterminding, the whole draft process to make sure that they qualify. And this time around, I don't think that they are hiding anything. Like these tower drafts are just accentuating like the strengths of the players rather than him trying to just cover for all of their weaknesses.
I'll tell you one angle, though, which is, I'll tell you right now, Yamato, who the biggest fans of IG and WE should be in the world. And it is the LCK teams. Because, mate, we can do all that breakdown of BLG, but BLG is exactly the sort of team you don't want to see go to an international tournament and have a chance to play against you. Because, remember, that'll be like weeks and weeks from now. The patches will be like, bro, that's the sort of team where you don't want to give people like Knight and Bin a chance to wake up. Even Elk, I actually do think Elk did step it up as the end of the split went on. Like, he showed you some of those games that reminded you, this guy used to be considered the best ADC in the world a year ago. Like, he was very, very good. So the difference is, you'll take an IG or W. You'll forget that no one's scared of them if you're fucking Animal Life and Genji. Everyone has to honour, if Knight and Bin make it to an international, you have to honour that they could just wake up one day and be really good. You never know. I'm with you, though. I definitely don't think BLG can actually be. Here's the thing: they could win the split, but they won't actually be like the best LPL team. Like, they just have their problems have remained the whole time. I'm with you. They've just sort of like patched up some of it, and they've just make it work enough. And then, by the way, it also definitely helped the JDG and top esports just drove off a cliff. That helped. That helps too, but that's not BLG can't rely on that.
No, definitely. This is a perfect segue to something that I just did, Thorin. I mentioned I was in Egypt, right?
Okay.
When I was walking down the beach, I just had the perfect view of like the waters, the sand. It was just perfect. But something I realized the first time I walked is all the noise, it's like so much people, they're talking, yes. Seagulls, bark, bark, bark. And then I realized I packed my Raycon earbuds. And my Raycon earbuds just beautifully draped that view with the sounds of my choosing. And with the active noise cancellation, all that noise that I just mentioned, the seagulls and the people.
He was like, so the toolkit is anyway simple in 2019. Flavor should have been fired. He was like, oh, thanks. Finally, I can just relax again. That British boomer telling me about esports. Yeah.
Precisely, there's just beautiful sunshine and Thorin's thoughts. That's exactly what I did. And all of that was enabled through the Raycon everyday earbuds. In my mind, we always mention it, but the fact that you can charge them and they last for 32 hours is crazy talk. Because during my entire trip, I was gone for 1 week. I didn't need to charge them, plug them in the wall a single time, which to me is crazy. It's something that I always forget. The multi-point connectivity is also super neat because I connected them to my laptop. I was doing some work when my fiance was sleeping, and I could just sit there, and do some work, and then easily connect it to the phone too. The active noise cancellation. I always thought that noise cancellation needed to have like the whole cupping thing going on to cover your ears. I thought that was good.
It is with earbuds, isn't it? It's actually amazing how well it works.
It's very surprising. I looked into the technology. It's like little microphones that are working, balancing out the sound. And that's all happening in the little earbuds, which is absolutely crazy. You can, of course, buy them and personalize them. There's many different colors. I keep it simple. I have the black ones, which is super straightforward. And additionally, if you don't like them for some reason, which I doubt, there's a 30-day, happiness guarantee. So you can just send them back, no questions asked. I always hate those questions that they ask, but there's no questions asked here. They will just be surprised. Like, really? Come on, man. What are you doing? I'd be surprised. So all you homies out there that just want to have premium audio at a very, very good price, go to buyraycon.com/LFN to get 15% off Raycon's best-selling everyday earbuds. Right now, Raycon is offering 50% off their best-selling everyday earbuds only at buyraycon.com/LFN. That is buyraycon.com/LFN. Make sure to tell them that we sent you. Just improve your life. Remove all that noise and just focus on the things that you actually do want to hear, like Thorin's thoughts, apparently.
Exactly. By the way, actually, I do also think the battery life is really underrated because I'll tell you, I'll give you one of those classic Thorin anecdotes. I don't share stories from my life often, but if I do, I'm at least a good sport. I make them the funny ones where it's embarrassing shit happening, like hilarious shenanigans. So there was a night where instead of stupidly, I could have been using these Raycons and I would be in a mega condition. I was using a different brand, not one of our sponsors, of a headset that I had. And it was one of those ones where the battery life's more like, let's say, like 10 hours or 12 hours. It's like an older pair, right? And I was doing it right, Yamato, where, look, once in a blue moon, of course, never would do this regularly. I was up late at night. It was like 3 a.m. And let's just say maybe I was sampling the devil's lettuce. You know, I was enjoying myself. And as I am wont to do, Yamato, as I'm busy, you know, in the process of consuming the aforementioned chemicals, I maybe, let's just say, was listening to a drum and bass mix. People might know that's the type of music I like. So I was listening to this really aggressive, like... And as I'm listening to it, right, because stupidly with these, it doesn't have the 32-hour battery life. I haven't charged it long enough. And all of a sudden, right in the middle of as I'm listening to this mix, the headphones just ran out of power. And if you know how this works, sadly, I have a home cinema system, Yamato. So it just defaulted to the speakers. So it meant at like 3 a.m, and I'm high. So I had to like Matrix Neo dive slow motion through there. No! Like, and get to the laptop and press the spacebar as soon as possible. Because it just blasted like out of nowhere. Like it was so loud, it was crazy, bro. Like you have to realize, even when I press spacebar and pause the screen, like I had to like calm down for about 30 seconds. The stress and all. So anyway, the point is, if you had these Raycons, that wouldn't happen because they just charge for like 2 days worth, basically. So you can just live your life and be a reasonable neighbour and not be a toxic asset to your whatever community you indeed live in, like I was, unfortunately, blasting out an incredibly aggressive. Also, why does it have to be that, Yamato? It can't be the time I listen to like a soundtrack or just like light orchestra. It has to be like super aggressive, like really obnoxious electronic music that like my neighbour's going to be like, yeah, thanks for that. It was 3 a.m, you motherfucker. Like I work at 7. Like, cheers. So anyway, that's why buying Raycon would have helped me in that scenario. Although I have them for free now from Raycon, so cheers. Do love those too. Right, I'll tell you what we need to talk about now, Yamato, and it is the LEC. And do you know what? I actually got, I'll give a bit of cross promotion here. I do a hot take point made show in League of Legends where we generate hot takes and crazy angles. And the person I do that with is I do it with Zabatine, the old coach of a bunch of like the LCS teams, and obviously a French guy who works on the broadcast. But the person I have to generate some of the hot takes, I have a guy called Keyray, who you might have once or twice seen. He's on Rich's Euro League show. But aside from that, he is just for real. It's not a troll. He's just a fan that came from my Discord. He's just a guy who's just followed esports for a long, long time. And he has like an interesting perspective. And he actually gave me an analogy I thought was a fucking banger, actually, Yamato. I'd never thought of this one before. So we're going to get into all the LEC topics, but I want to start in reverse order. So obviously, you've just had this amazing win by KOI where they've won the fucking split. Remember, like, when they made the last year, when that squad made the finals, that was like Adam didn't play. What the fuck was Fnatic doing? Oh my god, fluke by for score. Like this time they've won it like straight up. They are the champions. And one of the details is that means Super is now a champion. And this is a banger analogy. I'd never heard this one before. I was trying to think because I was saying basically on Twitter that like I've said this to you in the past. Super's one of those players that's grown on me split by split by split. I did think early on because what happened is the first thing I remember was I looked at this guy's game and I was like, bro, I've seen all the great mechanical players. You're not fucking Viper of a Europe. Like, listen, people might not like upset when he played defensive. He's got fucking some hands on, no boy. Like, he's got some mechanics on him, you know. You have to, like, I might not like the fact that Reckless was super defensive, but you can see his fucking hands are crazy. Super never had that for me. He was always just like a good player. He's an above average player, can be a good player, but I never thought like this person should be able to go hand. You know, like when Kalist went against even the top players, you're like, maybe he can beat them. I never thought that about Super. And then obviously his interviews made him seem too arrogant, right? But now I actually do see it's a classic thing. He is I don't know if he actually is arrogant, mate. His game lives up to it, and he is a really confident player. But someone gave me the best analogues. I was trying to think, who does that fit? Because you know when I've in the past said like the sneakies, the difference is like Sneaky wasn't like very arrogant though. He wouldn't trash talk. Bro, someone gave me. I want to throw it to you. Someone said this is a bit like Attila. Because actually, I will say Attila again when he was like beefing with Upset, I was like, it's Upset, bro. You're not as good as him. Listen, you might beat him with your team, but you're not better than him as an ADC. But I'll tell you what I did always appreciate. I think Attila believed that. I don't think Attila, like Super, these guys aren't trolling, by the way. They're not just doing like a Jojo, like, lol, I guess I'm just better, but they're like, wink, wink, I'm just doing trash talk too. I think like Attila, Super actually believes he's the best, mate. And he actually believes like he should beat fucking Kalist and Upset and all these guys. What do you think? Because I always thought actually one of Attila's biggest strengths was confidence. This guy really believed he was fucking shit, bro. That wasn't a joke, right?
No, definitely. It's like I think the analogy from the personality side definitely makes sense. I do think it works. It works super well. I think that's like the first step. It's like KOI's history here. Like even in situations where on paper they were worse, if we just look at the time span of this roster, there were moments where they beat teams that were on paper better than them when they were given that opportunity. There's a lot of teams out there.
Yeah.
There
Last
was a
year, I
lot
mean,
of
yeah.
yeah. There's just a lot of teams out there that had those same opportunities, like a BDS. But you knew that BDS walked into those series knowing they were the weaker
Yes.
team, and I think that's like half of the battle. And if you extend that as well into how you practice and how you approach the game, like something that they really emphasize in the interviews is like we deserve to win this shit because we worked harder than everybody. Like that was a sentiment that everybody on the team echoed. Like if you bring that same level of confidence into your practice, like this is what makes championships. I was very surprised by this result because I do think the odds are were very stacked against them, knowing that they came from the lower bracket. It's like they beat KC in a very close series. It could have ended either way, right? And I think that was I kind of thought that series was something that KC could like prepare them like selves out of because they ended the series on like a Pike Wukong game against the Braum, which is one of Alvaro's best champions. But Koi steadily improved. And the main difference for me is, like we mentioned, like hope breaking new seedings. I think Super did too. I think his role on this team, what has been super impressive is that he might not have the flashy archetype. Like we made the comparisons, for example, Hansama's European Gumayushi, and we have like the Upset is like the Viper of the region. If there's anyone like that has the archetype, like he made the comparison himself of saying that he's better than Deft. Like in terms of obviously it's like not a one-to-one comparison, but in terms of how Alvaro keeps active and plays with jungle, there's never a situation where I'm like, oh, this is a situation where the AD carry is suffering. He always makes the right decisions of where to be, how he generates gold, and then eventually, I think just his game IQ is super high. Like he always has a path of knowing how to be effective, even though he's not like the main part of the game plan, which reminds me of how like DRX, it's like we see Barrow like playing Heimerdinger, like level 3 ganking top, and it's like, what the fuck is happening to Deft and bot playing Kate? You know, he's playing 1v2, and it's just like a side note, a side detail, and somehow he participates in the game and finds ways to come online. And I think that's like Super's biggest strength. I think that he has a very good range of champs. I think the evolution, like the fact that Senna came through, I think has been super important. But I think that layer of safety and also consistency is always there, while Kalist is someone that plays insanely risky, while Upset and Hansama are more players that want to be have the game being played through them. They're less comfortable if they are like not the focal point of the game. And I think this is what Super's biggest strength is that he's willing to take the back foot. And I think Attila was also the same. It's like the main point of that team was like Kabusha Jizuke driving the game, and Attila found ways to be useful and to find prio and find champions that mixed super well with the support. I think Super had series here that were like insanely good. I want to also give like so much credit to just Alvaro and Elioya, because in a field that is quite stacked, in my opinion, in Europe in particular, I think they came out of this playoffs as just the best performing jungler, best performing support. Like a Mickey can maybe have some arguments there, sure, but I think Alvaro and Elioya was so damn good through and through. I thought they would lose some steam, especially in the BO5s, because I thought they would rely on very specific champions. But the way they understood the layers in terms of where the draft would go and the next step, I think they were super sharp. And I think, you know, we always made the comparison, like we always saw how when Spawn joined Team Liquid that they improved. Melzet being off like parental leave and joining the team, they just started popping off right off the bat.
Yes.
So fair play. Like this is a team, like this is such a beautiful championship to win, because there was a steady fucking improvement on everyone involved, and it's so similar to like the Anyone's Legend story, because it's just so clear that this was like a team won championship. It wasn't like, oh, Caps is just the GOAT. He just won. It's like there's a clear timeline and improvement, and them just being faster in the idea of getting better and better against the top four, which was very tough competition, I think, this year.
By the way, I'm with you on the Melzet point. If you go and look, it's almost quite literally the moment he comes back, they just become like twice as good as a team and they suddenly start cooking and like they're in all these matches against the top teams. And by the way, the playoff glow up is crazy. Like aside from that upper bracket final where G2 beat them, like I actually think they completely outplayed KC in both series, mate. I even think they could have won some of the games they lost. Like they looked really good. And by the way, I'm definitely with you. Even though I understand, look, it is, by the way, this is why I always say narratives when they're built up have to be honoured both ways. So in the same way as when this team failed, I would say to Elyoya, like, it's your team, mate. You handpicked the team. You're the captain. Well, in the same sense, like, if you win like this, then I don't mind if people do want to give Elyoya, like, playoff MVP. He definitely was mega impactful. But I'll tell you what, if I have to give it to a player, I would actually give it to Supermate. I think he played a fucking phenomenal playoffs. Another thing about this player that I really vibe with, bro, is he's actually a big game player too. That's also why I see he's hard to nail down because there's a lot of really great players with insane hands. Some of the LPL players talk about. Sometimes they don't always do as well in the big game. That's why they get nervous. This guy, I'll tell you one thing about this guy. He doesn't look like he ever gets nervous, mate. He always goes in. Have you noticed that when he wants it, when he's decisive and he has his angle? That's why I say I think this guy does think it. I see why he did the interview. I think in his brain he's just like, who gives a fuck if, like, in an aim test, you'd be slightly faster than me? In the actual server, I'm going to beat you. And I kind of fuck with that because I've now seen him do it enough. Like, I actually think last year he would even carry some of the bad games. And now that they're actually a good team, he could be a winning factor in this one, mate. Look, I will say, I think he's going to have a tough time at MSI, but then again, I should have thought he should have a tough time seeing these guys. He should have a tough time against Upset and fucking Hansama and Kalis. These guys are studs. These guys are the players we're going to want to send. So if he can beat them, fuck it. You know what? Load it up. Let's see him against Viper. Let's see him against Ruler, mate. Ruler isn't that great right now. I can't even believe I'm actually thinking out loud, but it's real. There's a world where actually Super can match up with fucking Ruler in a BO5. Like, again, what world has this got? Vampire, fucking Carries. Bloody hell. I know this year's mental, innit? It doesn't even make any sense, but whatever.
It's baby.
No, it's the world we're in, mate. No, props to Super, and by the way, mad props to Koi, because I agree with you. I don't want this to be remembered as like a fluke win. You know when Mad Lions with Niski and Elyoya back in 2023 won that one split? That was a fluke. I mean, they themselves will even tell you we never won any scrims. We were never going to do with it MSI. The joke is we were almost having like internal civil war and like want to kick people out of the team, but we couldn't. Whereas the difference is this is a squad that actually worked on all their issues. They definitely got way better than Winter, by the way. And then once Melzet came back, they're actually just fucking good, mate. Like, but there's another thing, by the way. Let's give some props to this Melzet guy. Look what he's done with these two different rosters. Like, he's had his down moments, but he's also had his fucking highs, and the highs are way higher than anyone expected. Nobody made these predictions. So this guy, I've got to give him credit. He must be a good coach, mate. He's definitely worked with these players in a very interesting way.
And to even bring us back to the beginning of Elyoya's career, it's like he won the two splits with, of course, Mad Lions, Humanoid, and then it was like the big moment, the pivotal moment after the whole Niski split and all the drama where there was like the whole Phoenix thing on Twitter, and looking at it from that point in time, I thought Mad Lions was crazy to move away from Mac and Pad. But then looking at in terms of how all the careers have panned out, it's like Elyoya, he found himself in so many finals with rosters that maybe shouldn't have been, and he has now won a split with this roster. And then you look over to some of the other players that were a part of that winning roster. Of course, in 2021, it's like Humanoid now with Fnatic is not looking that great. You have, of course, Mac and Pad with Vitality. It's like the owner is saying if they don't make top 4, they're fired. Is saying that publicly, which I think is kind of based, you know. But in terms of how like all the careers have panned out, it's like at this point, it's like looking at Elyoya's body of work, it's quite impressive. I think like the only pain point always was like those international events with Mad Lions, but to pin that on him doesn't really make that much sense in the grand scheme of things. And now, you know, he lost planes against EG, and now he's playing together with Jojo Pune, and I'm just happy that the vision of what Jojo Pune should have been and is now on the team, I'm happy that that's fulfilled. Because when that move was announced, I thought it was a brilliant move. Because it was very, very obvious that Jojo Pune is super, super talented as a player, and he needed to just move environments. We knew the moment he's fired from C9 and removed from C9 that the next team he's going to be in, he's going to figure out all of that shit. And then he's placed into Europe and in a completely different environment. You're no longer in sunny Los Angeles. You're in fucking Berlin. There's nothing to do. It's cold as fuck. There's only like, you know, parties and drugs, but you know, most pro players don't touch that. Some do, but let's not get into that. Like him being pulled into this environment with this roster that clearly, evidently, even last year worked their ass off. I think was just a very, very good move. So I'm happy that Georgia Pune, also has found form. The story of how they won is just. I don't know, that to me this is like competition. I'm so happy.
No, this is the team where if you could go back in time and send the Netflix documentary crew, it'd be this squad you'd want to watch, mate. Yeah, maybe last split it'd be KC for obvious. This split would be fucking MKOI. I bet them up and down must be crazy. Like I'd love to see what would happen behind the scenes at that like homestand, etc. Oh, I bet there'd be some glorious fucking drama. And I'm with you. Like you have to give props across the board here. Like if you actually look at it, first of all, Koi did take a gamble building around El Yoya, but it's worked. And I've got to say, El Yoya, this is why, by the way, if people don't know why I hype Skumond on G2 so much, it's because I have a massive affinity for junglers who themselves are like, oh, I'm not here to make like you slightly better and like be the bottler to you. I'm the star. Like if you play to me, mid laner, then we win the game. And I think if you look, like this is like Inspired is like that, El Yoya is like that. I think if you go, like I think Tarzan can play like that sometimes. I like the jungler who's like his vision of the. Put it this way, I'll give you the analogy. If you were to ask, I think fabulously skilled junglers like Razork and Blabber, like why did you do that move there? I don't think they can verbalize it or explain like what they were. I think they just have a feel and then they have the balls to go for it and then they have the outrageous raw talent and mechanics to pull it off. If you sat down and Inspired, an El Yoya, Skumon, these guys. I bet they could tell you everything they were thinking. They could tell you what the clue was here, and what they were working off, and what the idea was, and what they were asking for. These guys look like they just have the like vision of the game. So when you actually win, I always think El Yoya is one of those people where if this guy talks, mate, he might seem like he's arrogant, but I get it. The arrogance is deserved. He clearly has like a very good understanding of the game and the map, and what he wants from his teammates, etc. And that's why the Jojo move, I'm with you. That move actually, and it looked good in the offseason anyway. It has flourished in a way you couldn't even expect it. Because first of all, he's not only had good individual games, but you look at his problems last year. He clearly has the hands. He clearly is a guy who has the ego to want to be good. But he needs some guidance in the game. He's not the guy who's just got I think people take for granted that every mid lane is supposed to have this crazy macro knowledge. Like not everyone's a fucking scout or a faker or one of these. Like that's quite rare. So you put him with El Yoya, perfect. Just like with Inspired. What a great pairing that's been. And by the way, let's go on to that topic because we didn't talk about Jojo much, mate. This guy deservedly was a meme in the winter split. And early on in this split, he was having some games that looked kind of fucking silly when Melzit wasn't there. But I'll tell you what a fucking dope narrative that the fucking MSI is in Canada. He is from Canada. He came over, so understandably part of why he was a meme in winter was he wasn't just having off games, but he's this like he's this NA champion and MVP. He's coming over to LEC. And bro, we make mid laners, so of course we all want to be like, listen, little bro, this isn't your fucking LTA or whatever nonsense you call it now. This is the LEC, mate. Get back in the queue. We've got loads of mid laners here. Bro, this guy's going to get like a hero's welcome when he comes back. He's the champion of fucking LEC already. What a fucking dope storyline.
Oh, it's super cool. It's the fact that it's like the first North American import as well. Like that in itself as a player, of course, because we have plenty of coaches. But already that is like insane because for the longest time the LTA or the LCS was plundering the European players, the Mithi, the Svens, the Bjergsens, like all of the legends in the league besides like Doublelift are just imported players. So the fact that in LTA now in terms of how they are suffering, it's like it's weird how the perfect storm kind of shaped up and they took the opportunity on him and that he took it all the way. I was nervous there for some time because Winter Split was atrocious. Like it was really, really bad. It's like it's funny. You get those guys that's like, oh, you're flaming Georgia Punes. Yeah, because he played bad and now he played good. So I praise him. That's how things work. It's like I don't make an opinion of the first game they play and hold on to that for the rest of my life. That's not how it works. He played bad, now he plays good, and now he deserves praise. And him going to MSI, super, super cool. The final player that we can mention too, because I think Midwin, super, super stable. I like the fact that he was capable of just playing the whole range of the meta, was ready to play the tanks, was ready to play the counters into Rumble, played Rumble himself.
It's a lot more sacrificial this split, don't you think?
He's just
before to me, he always had to have his weird picks or his unique. He's it seemed like he was just willing to let other people carry the game, mate.
I just I found like a really, really good balance. And you mentioned already like teams in other regions that are performing super, super well right now. It's usually like in that kind of construction of the team. It's a top laner that plays in isolation, whether it's Keen, whether it's now Midwin, or we mentioned, of course, Cube and Flandre. It's like in this current state of the game, it's good to have a player that is capable of playing in isolation and has a very good range of champions, because I think top lane, you can skew the game and find picks later that are very, very good against what the enemy drafted. So having that range is super, super important. And in the end, it's like people were like he played against a Kana. Like Kana was probably like the most dangerous player in that KC series. BB, regardless of what people want to talk about his form, I didn't think his form was that great, but like Midwin shat on him. It's like the top laners in Europe, you can talk about their individual underperformances or overperformances, but Midwin played against a field that is on paper very strong. So I think that this KOI roster, if I just look at the two teams going to MSI out of the LEC, I am way more excited about KOI, because I think that at least they bring a certain nuance to their early game and their approach in the game that they can find advantages against some of the best teams in the world, I'm sure.
Yes.
They can put themselves in positions where they can actually have like a winning position. While looking at G2, I think G2 is playing like the most basic form of League of Legends right now, where it's like, oh, we want to stabilize the lanes, and then we want to just set up for the objectives. Kind of like a BDS of old that is like very cookie cutter in the way they play, and they don't really supply any level of creativity, because the two roles with the most amount of agency in the game, Labrov and Skumond in jungle and support, aren't really offering that level of creativity. It's like Skumond is very, very good at driving games where he is like carrying and he's ahead and he can play it on his own time. And Labrov the same way. If they have pushed through bot, Labrov knows how to leverage that. But when the game states are even or a little bit worse, they don't know how to find advantages through others. And I think that KOI as a team moving into MSI is going to be way more excited than G2, because G2's gameplay pattern is basically, oh, we're falling behind and we're just gonna hope you make a mistake. That didn't work against KOI. It worked against Fnatic, but that's about it.
Yes. No, that's the funny thing is, look, I'll give them credit. The upper bracket final was good against KOI, but I'm with you. I actually think put it this way, I haven't done it yet, obviously, but when I do the best damn league show, I really might even choose as my ugly point. You know, we do that format where it's like you pick a god, a bad, and an ugly point. My ugly point will actually be that fucking Fnatic series tricked G2. It made everyone go, G2's back to the best. And I always said, like, they weren't though. Like, Fnatic was like that close to winning and they kept throwing. Like, true, G2 was able to like wait and catch the throw, as I always say, which is the hard part, and then punish it. But bro, the point is, if Fnatic hadn't given them the way back in, they would have just been beaten straight up. They would have been in the low bracket immediately. So I do think people overrated the G2 angle. Like, if you notice, the reason I was going wild on Twitter about this topic is people were doing that lazy thing, Yamato. It's like the European version of T1 wins Worlds. When T1 wins Worlds these two times, their fans just go like, right, I'm just going to recontextualize the whole season. They just don't care about regular split. And then also Faker's already got all the LCKs, who gives a shit. And then, you know, MSI's like whatever. But then Worlds, when it really matters and everyone's leveled up, that's when they bring their best kit. So people were doing that with G2. Like, well, what did you expect? Everyone knew G2 would be the best in the end. Guys, they haven't won any of the splits now. And in fact, both finals they've gotten convincingly beaten. And in fact, I thought in this one, it was kind of actually shocking. But I'm with you. On the KOI side first, I actually do think the best thing about KOI is in some way, I agree they're like an anyone's legend. They are more than the sum of the parts. They're more than the names. And in fact, one thing I love is the coherence of the team. They play as an actual team. Look, it might be a bit formulaic, but it is a formula. It works. And crucially, Yamato, and this is why I give massive props to Melzer, you can tell everyone in this team knows their job in the formula. No one's confused or out there. If I actually do think of some of the squads that are going to go, again, another sentence I never thought I'd say out loud, but this actually would be the sort of team that might be able to like fucking upset like a BLG or something. Like, I could see a BLG just being like, how are they even in the game at this point in time? Like, we're better than these guys. But like you said, they're sneaky. The way they get into the game is really interesting. It works, by the way. Once they get to the objectives, if they're even state, they have a chance to win. And by the way, I can't even believe I'm thinking of this, but I want to see a world where fucking, you know, it's like a close Baron fight and fucking Super's cleaned up BLG or something. Like, it's possible. It's actually possible now, guys. These things are all on the table. These are real opinions. They're not just crazy, like, out there ideas. So no, mad props to KOI. Let's talk about G2 though, because bro, somehow G2 has sort of skated by without any criticism here, because everyone was so focused on hating on Fnatic for coming fourth, then KC for coming third, and then no one really thought KOI would win. And then it's only like halfway into the final, you're like, shit, they're not only going to win, they might even 3-0 this motherfucker. Like, what do you think? What happened to G2? Because I'm with you. I do think the problem is, like, this is why I hated the idea people wanted to destroy the regular split narrative. Bro, some of their issues from regular split still clearly exist in this team. Like, this isn't the team that front runs all the time. They don't have a big gold lead on everyone all the time. The lanes aren't all the head all the time. Like, they are actually, like they're a good squad of players, but there's clearly some flaws. So what do you think of G2?
Yeah, I think it's strange, especially in this finals, because I did think in that first series, that the first time faced against KOI, I think they played a lot better, because in my mind, I thought it was very clear that they worked on like how the jungle support play together and how they fight together, actually finding opportunities, and also playing like a very side lane heavy game. Like I remember that opening game they did in the first series where they played like Ari Camille, and you could actually see like Broken Blade and Caps actually like playing together. And they were actually like playing on side. They were like undermining the opponent. They were like going or walking out on the same lane with double TP. And I thought, okay, G2's actually making this team again be more focused on how a Caps and BB would like to play the game, because historically these guys are always playing on side. They're creating advantages through traps, and they are creating advantages through just pushing first and cheating tempo. And I feel like now, looking at G2 in this KOI final, I feel like they reverted back to exactly like that same formula that they tried to just leverage throughout the regular split. And that's a very, very normal reaction when it comes to less experienced players, when it comes to like a finals. Because I like in the end, it's like KOI managed to live up to all the big moments. It's like they played on stage in the arena with, what was it, 12,000 people, and they managed to win two best of threes, and they managed to leverage that pressure into something beautiful. Like Miriam was shouting and swearing, you know, and I like this type of energy, you know. It's like you're in the right state of mind to try to win. While G2, it seemed like the pressure came and they reverted back. And I felt exactly the same thing when it came to them losing against KC, where these roles that they need to carry over and these opportunities that Skumon needs to find, it's like he was a little bit too glued to the camps, because a big problem in this series that they played in the finals was that Elioya got a level 3 gank in almost every game. He pressured Invade, got a level 3 gank in, and he really put the pressure on Skumon that wants to play a little bit more of a calmer game. And I think now the meta globally, like I think Anyone's Legends is also a team that does it super, super well in terms of like pressuring, like early levels, looking for the invade angles, looking for the split maps. I think this is something that just Elioya did brilliantly well. And the moment Skumon like fell behind, it seemed like he's just going to resort back to what he knows, and he couldn't really farm himself out of those holes.
They
played a little bit too safe. A little bit too safe, didn't try to find angles to like break the pattern of the game. And the main thing is, like I mentioned earlier, level 3 ganking, the target was the bot lane. If Hansama and Labrov are not winning and they are not in a comfortable position, they also resort back to this type of condition, where it's like they like, if we make the comparison to the LPL series that we saw today, it's like Billy is aware. It's like, we have one item against 1.5. This Drake is coming up. Or Anyone's Legends, same thing. It's like, we have to fight this Drake, because next Drake, they're going to have 2 items. We're going to get outskilled. We're going to lose the game. They die miserably on that Drake, but at least they took an opportunity on their condition. And G2 just played in a way where they're just waiting and waiting and waiting. And I think that a lot of the criticism people put onto Broken Blade and Caps, and I think understandably so, it's like, especially that last game, how BB played, he got solo killed against the Kisante, how he played the team fight. There was that moment where Caps, like in an absurd way, just walked into Melee, Leona, and River. I don't know what the hell that was.
I know.
Fair criticism, but I also think that with Caps, I'm always going to say this, it's like the way he plays is going to shift heavily depending on what he thinks his teammates are going to give him. And when he resorts back to playing like Orianna in the middle of a series, that means that he doesn't have belief that he is going to actually gain any like assistance. I remember like there was this moment where like I was at the World Finals Analyst Desk 2018 when they lost against, of course, like Fnatic lost against IG. And I was at the bar, a fly in the room, and a big topic of conversation was exactly that, is that Caps didn't feel like they could win the 2v2 mid jungle against Ning and Rookie. So he pivoted. Went from playing Irelia to then playing Victor and Azir because he just wanted to play in isolation.
Right.
So he's going to give that response. Like if he doesn't feel he's going to get help in the game, he's going to resort back into things that maybe he can do something himself with. And we've seen the history of like Caps playing Orianna. It was the Worlds with the Nocturne Orianna. It was also like I remember playing against his Orianna in the best of 5 where we beat them. It always comes up, Thorin. It always comes up where we beat them for the Worlds. He also played Orianna then, and true. I think these are like the signs of Caps and BB being uncomfortable in the way the team approaches the game, because they are known and good at something. They're not perfect players, but they are super, super good at the very specific way to approach the game. And I think they showed that way better in the first series against Koi. But this time around, like Koi just broke them in the early game too fast. And I think in that game 4, still, I think G2 should have won that. BB was in a great position.
Let's talk about this one. Because here's the thing, I'm with you. I do think if you look at G2 is still a Hans Sama team, mate. I mean, the one game they won was just they got Hans Sama going early, and then they could get the game going. Like, you can see this team's based on him being actually like their best player, you can argue at the moment. In game 4, though, that's where it's like, well, we've got the conditions, we've got you some kills, mate, we've got the game going. Like, I'm with you, that should have, if that was the G2 people thought they were, that should have been a game 5. We should be pushing through, but like, that mad props to Koi for being able to stay in the game. Like, these guys, they've got the championship mentality, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I like that. There was just some like 3-4 crucial mistakes. I'm still thinking about that Caps moment when he just stumbled into River with phase rush. That was just such a crazy moment, because I think draft-wise they were in such a good spot too. I didn't think that the Kassadin was that good of a lock-in in this particular game. But after that fight, they also got Atakan, and suddenly like Kassadin and K'Sante were just giga accelerated, and Jinx, like both Hans Sama and Caps in that game just itemized so poorly. Like Caps went Hourglass in that game. Hourglass. When you have Thresh on your team, Skarner on your team, and the only threat really is like Nafiri and like Leona, like that's not enough. You're not playing against Vi or anything. It's like you going Hourglass instead of Leandris in that game was absurd in my opinion. Jinx buying IE on 3 when there's a 300 armor K'Sante and Leona on the enemy team. Like the LDR problem with Hans Sama always. Not as egregious in this one because he actually went in IE but just didn't have LDR. It was just like, they just didn't seem to be in the right headspace in comparison to Koi, who just was in the right headspace to win. It's like they walked into that finals thinking they deserved to win, that this is their win. They did everything they could leading into that finals, and I think that's just the best form of confidence that you can have when you know you did everything you could moving into the finals, and just props to them. Like really, really deep respect for this one.
By the way, the reason why actually I do think the Kassadin game was significant is one of the points on Best Damn League Show that Peter Dunn made was he actually thought that what G2 did in the upper bracket that could be like a blueprint to beating Koi is they showed that you can just use the fearless draft element to drain down Jojo's champion pool, so that like essentially if as he plays his champions, you play his champions, eventually if you get to game 4 and game 5, he doesn't have any left. And people know the thing about Jojo over winter and then the first half of this split was he had a very limited champion pool. You knew exactly what he wanted to play. He wanted to play Azir and fucking Victor and what is it? What's the other one? Fucking Yorn. These are the champions he wants to get to. Maybe an Ari every now and then. But like, if you look at it, bro, the fact he's playing Kassadin and winning the game in the finals, like, this is big time shit. Like, again, if people want to make it that this guy's a meme, Yamato, he actually just for real beat Caps. So his team beat Caps. He actually played really well himself too. Like, this is a big time performance for Jojo.
Like we heard the story, right? The like the Casio lock-in, the Kassadin lock-in. This was like some first time shit that he just pulled off on stage. And that we mentioned some moments like really set you up to have scars for a lifetime, like with Cream and his international performances. It's like if you drop like a first time champion that you haven't played in quite some time and you like perform and win, that really sets you up for success in the long term, because having the balls to pull this off is so crucial in a format that's going to be like fearless for the end of time. Like, you're not going to be able to play comfort always. And on the topic of fearless, it's like we see this all over the world. It's like you see occasional games where it's like the better team is just losing because there's just so many factors. I just wanted to bring this up because the conversation around Fearless was always like, oh, pro players should be able to play all these champs. It's like, no, it's fucking hard. It's really, really hard. It's very difficult.
Well, here's the thing, Yamato. If you are the guys from MKOI, maybe it is indeed Melzet, maybe it's Elyoya with his team back to the top again, maybe it's Jojo winning his first LEC championship. These are moments you'll want to remember forever. And one of the great ways you could indeed curate and remember those is if you had an aura frame. Because this is actually, I've pointed out in the past, this is actually one of those rare products where I would actually have just bought this myself if someone had given me the idea correctly before they became a sponsor, because actually that's what Monty did. He actually had already used this product and then he realized like we should try and get rid of sponsors of show. This is great. Because one of the best things is, first of all, I actually do think people take for granted, because you think to yourself, digital picture frame, do I need that? Surely you just put a picture in a frame. That's it. No, because what you're not thinking about is, I'll give you the analogy, Yamato. Everyone said the same thing about digital books back in the day. Remember that? Every person, you know, I even said the same line outside. We all did. We all went, I prefer the feel of a book in my hand, though. I like having a real book to show. And then what you realize is the reason that's a boomer take is because, yes, when you're at home and your books are on your shelf, maybe it's not that big a deal to pull a book down. But I'll tell you what, if you do our line of work, Yamato, and you go on a plane, suddenly having like the Kindle with like the 500 books on it is OP. Now think about it, you'd only have 2 or 3 books with you. You'd have to pick between them. You can have loads, you can have a whole series, you can go to a comfort read. The quality of life upgrade once you've like got the tech is mega. I'd say the same thing with a digital frame. Instead of just a classic frame where you get a physical photo and you put it in, it's just that one photo. And obviously that means, by the way, if your relative wants that photo, you either have to digitally send them it, then they have to print it out or get it printed, or they have to actually take an old school picture, taking up. No, the brilliant of a digital frame, especially this Aura one, is it's super easy to set up. You basically just need Wi-Fi. It has like a cloud storage thing. You can put loads of stuff on there. You can't only put pictures. You can also put little video clips up to a certain amount of seconds long. And you can put loads of photos on there. So just like the Kindle example, you can have hundreds of photos that it cycles between. You can set how quickly it cycles between them all. And I always tell people, I actually think the most OP part of this particular product is the effect it has if you use it yourself to share photos with people in your family circle. So the great examples are like your mom or your grandma or an auntie or your girlfriend, etc. What you do is give them this as the gift, set it up for them. As long as they have Wi-Fi, they're not going to need to do anything else. And then you control it. So then when things are going in your life and you have a dump of photos on your phone, or you're going to put some on Instagram, throw that onto the cloud and then it updates on their frame. And what's dope then is, while you're away forgetting to call your old mum and say, how you doing, mama? I really appreciate all the things. You don't need to. You're doing that sort of without a word, because when you keep her up to date on your life and you send her the latest picture of you with your mates or at a sporting event, so they're going to feel part of your life. I actually think it's a really dope sort of like underrated gift you can give someone. So check out Aura Frames, because Father's Day is coming up. And so for a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off their best-selling Carver mat frame. That's the best one in my opinion. They also have all different sizes of frames, by the way. That's AURA frames.com. The promo code is, of course, summoning, the first word of Summoning Insight, SUMMONING. Support the show by mentioning us at the checkout when they ask where you heard about us. Obviously, this depends where you actually are based, as whether you can get this. I believe it's USA, UK, Canada, I believe it is. There might be offers for other countries. Like, it might not be that this exact border supplies, it might be a different board. So check that out. But I do know those countries it definitely ships to, like certain Anglosphere companies. And I think this is a banger. I genuinely think this is one of the best gifts. Like, this also, by the way, a great gift idea. It's quite hard to buy gifts for your family members and your mum and your dad and to know what they're into and stuff. This is cool because you're sort of giving them the gift of yourself and the rest of their family. And even though this will sound a bit saccharine, Yamato, in a way, your parents or your granny or whatever does want the gift of just being part of your life and knowing what you're up to and seeing what you're doing. And by the way, if it is like your mum or your grand, they're going to enjoy seeing you flourish and all the things you're doing in your life and having fun with your friends and stuff. I think that will actually touch their heart and it will get to them. So get your old dad, even though you won't be there, but have him when he's sat back with a fucking Cerveza, one little tear comes down. There's my boy. There he is, making his own way in the world. Your dad would have been proud of you. You know, all that shit. Yeah, exactly. Touch him for $30 left. Check out Aura Frames. Right, anyway, let's talk now about Bro. You know what? We weren't here for all these weeks, but spoiler, Yamato. You know that Fnatic team? Turned out this wasn't actually their time to win, and actually they did, in fact, fuck us all. And, you know, let's just do it. Let's get, like, give me the Fnatic take. What's Yamato's Fnatic take? What happened, mate? What happened? What happened?
Honestly, I think it's pretty simple. I think they're just ass. Bro.
Okay. So it's not that complicated, right? They're just ass. Okay.
It's like, I think at some point, it's like I work with Humanoid. It's a long time ago.
That's why we pay you the big bucks, Yamato. What happened to Fnatic? They're just ass. Well, you know what? Can't argue with that. You got him there. Got him. Come on.
It's like,
by the way, the one good thing about this news is at least someone else didn't win with Humanoid and Razork. Now you don't look as bad, Yamato. Now it's just proven no one can win with these
honestly,
guys.
I look pretty goated.
Yeah, you were coming second and third all the time. That's not too bad, actually. Yeah, not too bad. Yeah.
I look pretty goated. I had all these players that people love to shit on. Like Razork, Hilly, Humanoid. Like we had
to reiterate a millionth time, you also with them did beat G2 in the best of 5. We'll just point that out for the millionth time.
It's just just to loop everybody in, because it's like the Grabs news. It's like they said they are holding tryouts for basically the top sides. It's like he mentioned that basically the bot lane was the only thing that was working hard, and it's like basically the energy that he gave up is like either you work hard or you fuck off, because it's like it's a shame to the organization, which I think carries a lot of weight and truth. I think from the perspective of the players, right? It's like at some point it's like, if Fnatic fans are exhausted, I imagine that these guys are also just so fucking exhausted too. I think it's like the scars that they carry and like the pain that they carry. It's like the top side has been the same. It's like Humanoid and Razork has played together for such a long time.
Mate,
and
I wonder, that thing I said earlier about the players, the creams of the world, when they get like the scars. These guys definitely have that. They have the permanent. They're in Vietnam right now, still, mate, losing the G2. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, isn't it?
Definitely. And it's like I wanted to mention, it's like I work with Humanoid, and I think as a player, if he doesn't see the vision of the team, it's very, very hard to like motivate him. And I think this has always been like his biggest flaw. And I wonder at this point in time, it's like with working together with Razork for so long and facing those same issues for so long, it's like at what point did Humanoid like give up on his jungler? Because Razork has shown like he has had very, very high highs for sure. I don't think he's played as bad as he is right now. Always, he's definitely been good at times. But at what point did Humanoid like give up on Razork? And in the same vein, like at what point was this actually like a situation where they as players no longer thought that they were compatible? Because I can't imagine a world where they are delusional about the results, right? It's like at some point
you realize they have to have thought about this by now, surely, and had a conversation or something, you figure, right?
It's like they are 4 years in now. This is the fourth year together, and they've been through ups and downs. It's like at some point you also look over and you realize like, oh shit, it's like you are now in the same box, because you are going into the office and to reinvent yourself in a scenario where you've been in the same relationship with the same problem for such a long time, it becomes like almost impossible. That's why some problems you want to hammer them down as soon as possible as they appear, because when they linger, they're going to stay forever. And I can say from 2022 already we had like practice issues, scrim issues, in terms of like making sure that the motivation was there. I had to like pull off like a bunch of fucking band-aid solutions to just make sure that we came into the games whole, because we were at death's door pretty much every single series that we played. And I just think through the context of this roster, like the core of it, the top side being same for such a long time. They played with 5 different bot lanes. If we think back all the way to like Rux and Reckless and Advian,
it was on
and
Twitter. I didn't check the stat, but it sounds plausible. Some fan said Razork and Humanoid in Fnatic have had 14 different players and 7 different coaches. That's pretty wild, isn't it? That's pretty wild, mate.
It's like in terms of bot lanes, we have to count Upset twice, Reckless twice, but it's like, damn, they played through so many players. And
by the way, think of those names. Look, certainly some of these splits, they weren't all their best, but look at the bot lanes alone, bro. Wait a minute, they've had Upset, Hylissang, Reckless, Mickey. Bro, what more do you want? Like, first of all, these are the best players. And like, who else was supposed to join? Like, you've had everyone.
Trimby, Noah. To be fair, when they got Reckless, he was not the greatest. But
no, same thing. The names are all the same quality, but on paper, these are the best names you can get.
No, for sure. It's just I think the roughest part is that we have reached a point now, like we mentioned this about top esports and about how like their name quality carries weight, and you imagine that they're gonna do better on a different team.
Yeah.
It's like now they've stuck around with each other for so long that they even lost that credibility. You know, because last year and even the year before, people came out with the take. I had the take at times too that you know, I think Humanoid and Raz are going to be so much better on the next team. I even thought of the angle that Humanoid should reunite with like Elioya on the current roster that they have if they couldn't get Georgia Pune, because I could see that could, you know, create like a resurgence in how Humanoid is as a player. But now if they go through another year of all this pain, it's like, what kind of a team can they even land on in a world where now we have like a pretty decent pool of mid laners, decent pool of junglers, when maybe previous years mid laners just didn't exist? It's like the biggest complaint people had about the mid lane pool in Europe was the fact that, yeah, Humanoid was the second best player, regardless of how bad he played. He was always there at the internationals, shitting on all the new guys coming through, but that's no longer the case. And the aura of the past and the credit that they've carried over is just no longer there. And I'm really, really intrigued to see where they land, because usually in situations like this is where you kind of wish that you had an academy team. I understand why they don't, why G2 don't, right? Because it's an additional expense, and you are paying so much for the players that you currently have that you want to make kind of a firm commitment. But we've seen like academy players show up in like every LCK team and just revitalize the whole team.
This is actually a point, by the way, for a little cross promotion again. On the last episode of Best Damn League Show, we actually discussed this topic about the fact that, like, why doesn't Fnatic have an academy team? In fact, we even made the point, if people know, because obviously Peter Dunn did this in EG. Remember, in EG, just like 100 Thieves, they had like the three teams, mate. They had the main team, the academy team, and then like the youngsters team. And if people don't know, the youngsters team is where they found some of those people, like the fucking Danny, etc. Like, those are the players they brought through, or Jojo, one of the two. They found one of them through there. I think it was maybe Danny they brought through. So the point I made on that show, which ties to what you're saying, is, bro, as Fnatic, that's where your name draw would get you players as well. Everyone would love to be in the academy squad if it meant you could get promoted to LEC Fnatic squad. Like, they would get some of the talent, because I know what you mean. Like, they don't have an option to go to an academy team and take a player now. Like, you should probably do it for some, but still, you haven't got a choice. They don't have that option.
Just Casey, I think Casey's history, it's like in terms of how they joined the LEC, was just like really, really well done, because they did it very carefully. Like they made sure to establish themselves in the RLs before ever pursuing anything, you know, grand. And they won the EME Masters. They nurtured, you know, the players, and they have been insanely good at scouting. It's like they picked up Kalist between splits, Vladi, and I think the history of their ERL, like, that matters super, super much. There was this argument that I had with Ibai, right? Where like her son, like for some reason when I was on KC, he just came after me for some bullshit reason. I don't know what the fuck was up with him. I was like, bro, you're hanging out with Messi. Like, why are you tweeting at me, bro? Nevertheless, he tweeted at me, and I made the response. It's like, bro, you can't make the comparison between Koi and KC. You have no fucking history in League. It's like you slapped your name on something, and what you've accomplished in the ERLs is a joke, right? And it turned out it's like the org that they were under, Koi, with the whole rogue thing, was bullshit, right? It was just bullshit. So it turned out to be true. And then in the end, they had to learn the very, very hard way, because they basically inherited the structure of Movistar in the end, which was Melzet and all the players. And that's where they kind of found their form again and actually started with an semblance of history. But in the terms of what Fnatic is as an org, especially knowing, because I was there, it's like anyone that left Fnatic at some point was so scorched by the experience. And Fnatic carried over the momentum of winning a world championship with Expeke and Shushe to attract the biggest players for the longest time. It's like they had the legendary players early in the season, and then they managed to leverage that into signing the next player, the next player, the next player. But at some point, you gotta have like things in place that actually attract players more than just history. Because now it's like joining Fnatic is not as exciting as it was maybe a couple of years ago. When I joined Fnatic back in 2020, moving into 2021, that was like insane. Fnatic versus G2, the only two orgs in the region. But now Fnatic has lost all of that spark, all of that credit that they built up due to their victories, that they leverage to momentum to carry over to the next player, the next player, the next player. But all of that credit, their reputation, even the fandom is also just squandered. So it's like in terms of where they move from here, it's like I don't know how they can possibly create some kind of a rebuild mid-split. I had the take that they should just bring back Wunder. That they just bring back Wunder.
Yeah.
Maybe they bring back Wunder, give some stability back, and actually, have a player top that brings a voice. And in the context of how we mentioned, it's like top lane is about weak side right now. It's like Wunder is as close of a player you're gonna get in Europe to Flandre as possible. And I think that he would be like a positive force. On the topic of mid and jungle, I don't know how creative you can get. I think that's trickier, but I'm also not completely like super tapped in what's happening in the ERLs. It's like, they're gonna get like Velia Nemesis. I don't think this is an opportunity or that they would want to take in the middle of a season, because it just carries way too much risk. I don't know what kind of changes they could make so fast to replace Razork and Humanoid.
Here's my problem, to rewind it all, and we'll start with all the Grabs comments, etc. I think Grabs is completely painted in our corner. Like, the real problem is this. I think if they'd have even made one of these finals, you could cope and you could go, we'll get him in summer. That's when we're going to level up a bit more. And we're going to work on a few more. The problem is because they've come third and fourth, that just isn't good enough. Like, for this roster, in the regular splits, they are top 2 each time. Like, they do look fucking amazing. So here's my problem, Yamato. The kind of moves people want to make, these emergency moves for summer, I don't think it's, in my opinion, you should never have gone into this year with Razork and Humanoid if you were ever going to consider changing it. Like, you committed to this squad, you put the really good players around them, you have to just play it out. Like, I don't think there's any ERL players going to come in and suddenly, put it this way, if we do what past it, let's say we bring in Zviru or something that's not going to win you the game. Like, even if he doesn't in like Humanoid, he's not going to carry a series, is he? So it's not going to help. So my big problem is this. If you have this Fnatic squad and you've been as good as you were in the regular split, you were even, I make this point, in both of the upper brackets, you had moments against G2, you were winning. You were looking really good, and you have shown, there's no team in Europe can accelerate the early game like this team, mate. This team just gets so far ahead of you. They've always got a gold lead. They've always got kills. They've always got items up on you. Like, you have to just take that and just keep working with it. You have to just hope miraculously that somehow works in summer in a way it hasn't done so far. But one of my problems is this, Yamato. Even though I do really appreciate the effort to be transparent like Grabs did and to talk about all these stories. By the way, like with every single effort towards transparency, it always costs you, I'm afraid, with stupid people. Like, I already saw loads of people on Twitter who I think should know better in the industry, Duncan on that take about how he allowed them to play a scrim with no comms, right? Guys, if you dunk on that, you're a fucking noob who doesn't know esports. If you're some analyst or like you were in the scene, you didn't actually follow any top team, because every top team I know almost has done that at one point in time, Yamato. It's a classic move when there's a comms problem to have people play with no comms, so that then afterwards you can say sort of like, notice how that would have been easier if you'd have been able to say. It's a classic technique. He's not saying he really did it all the fucking time, you idiots. He means he just did it a few times as an experiment. It's the same as how sometimes, even though it sounds silly, sometimes people, if they for example, smash scrims too early, they really will handicap themselves in a scrim. They'll go like, let's not try and go for some crazy solo kill top. Let's just play even and see what happens at 10 minutes. So that's not what you do in the pro game, but that is a technique that people will use. By the way, if people want to know why that's not silly, there are lots of all-time great coaches have stories like this. The difference is, if at the end of the story, Yamato, you go, and then we won the championship, suddenly it looks like genius what you did. So I'll give you an example. Phil Jackson supposedly has had practices in basketball where he made people practice without a basketball. Now, if you lose in the playoffs, that sounds just as stupid. You'd go, what a fucking idiot. You're going to use the bot. No, but when you win, you go, wow, he's the Zen master. See, he understood something the others did. He was willing to experiment. Like, my problem is this, Yamato. I think so much of what Grabs was saying there is either one, that's something to think about for next year, or two, it's just cope. Because that angle right there of they didn't work hard enough. Well, why wasn't it a problem with regular split then? Bro, they looked awesome in the regular split. They didn't work hard enough, can't be it. Certainly, if it's true that only Upset and Mickey X really put in mad solo queue hours, then okay, we could do a bit extra. But that's not the reason Humanoid played like shit. That's not the reason Razork made extra into every playoff game. That's not the reason Oscaridin just fell off a cliff. And the other thing as well that I hate about that is, here's why I don't buy it, Yamato. Because 1 second before they got rocked, Skyrim was talking mad shit in all interviews. He was mega confident. He was, you could tell he thought he was going to like win the LEC or something, mate. And then magically when they lose, like, oh, sorry, oh, better work harder. It's like, you were talking shit a minute ago. I don't believe you. I think what happened is because you've lost, you think you just have to say all the right things. We'll try harder. Or sorry, guys, we didn't have the right mentality. Like, this is just who you are. That's the biggest problem I especially have with the Razork and Humanoid one. We have to just accept this is just who these players are, Yamato. Maybe one day someone will find a cure, but right now, Razork just does, no matter how good he is, he always ints. That's just a problem he has in his game. I have a really hard time with him because, as I say, I feel like he has the Hillsong problem where the int is very similarly tied to the brilliant player that makes him so brilliant and that we all love watching. And the Humanoid one, there's just something with this guy's head when it comes to these big series, mate. Like, even though he does reliably underperform in them, he does trick you every time. Every time he'll have that series that looks good before, he'll have those couple of regular season games where he even gives you like a massive performance. You think, maybe this is the time. These guys, they're actually, sadly, those two players are consistent in what goes wrong, unfortunately. That's why I don't buy that it's just they didn't scream enough or they need more solo queue hours or so. I don't know. Put it this way, I don't put this on grabs. I don't know what more you're supposed to do, mate, to make them win. I will say the one angle I did like was what was brought up by like Nightshare for the millionth time, which is, why are we still asking for like a sports psych or a performance coach? How is that not a thing? That's where Fnatic the org could level up, Yamato. The idea they don't have they've had these guys for years and they don't have a fucking sports psych. What? I think like that's an obvious thing you do with a superstar roster of players, you know.
Bro, I can tell you, it's like when I worked, when I was in Fnatic in summer, we brought over someone called Fab, and
he's quite a famous guy. It was
no, not the guy who was an agent. It's like this is different homie. He was like a basketball coach that came in to help the team, and for me, this guy is a legend. But basically, I can tell you that at the end of that year, because of what happened at Worlds, they needed to point fingers at somebody, even though me and him did everything we could to, of course, make the situation at the World Championship like function and work, because that was a COVID year, so we were completely in isolation and we had almost zero contact with what was happening, like with upper level management and so forth. So we were in isolation, working our own thing, dealing with our own shit, right, and doing our own way. But then at the end of the year, it was like, oh, someone needs to be like blamed for what happened. And they got rid of this dude who to me is a fucking legend, you know, absolute legend. And then they brought in somebody else that didn't like work well with the players at all. And then at some point along the line, they just kind of gave up, because it's like they just kept getting rid of the people that actually like did all of the work. Because at the beginning of that 2023 year, after winter, they asked me to come back, and I was ready to work with Fnatic and continue in Fnatic. But after that winter split where everything went to shit and they didn't even make playoffs and they were bottom 2, they asked me to come back. But it's like, bro, like this is I need to be repaid for all of the fucking pain I went through and all the fucking money that I didn't make because I took pay cuts for people that you later fired. So like I needed to stand on my own business, you know. But like that pattern is just like re-emerging. And I think from Grabs' side, I think him having the public discourse, I think if anything, this is a good way for him to create a circumstance where he has more power in the equation. I wonder if internally he's being withheld from being able to take decisions that he maybe wants to do. And maybe putting this in the public frame and actually putting that pressure on the players, knowing that they're like making sure that they shouldn't feel comfortable at all playing for Fnatic and just being mediocre, putting that pressure on them and putting that in the sphere of the public eye. I think maybe that's like the only move that he had to be able to make the decisions that he wants to make. So I could see that line of thinking. And in the end, you know, I understand also like moving into BO5s, you kind of want to still cope your way into thinking that you can win in case the enemy wants to give you that. So being confident in interviews does make sense, the same way Casey did, right? The Yike was so...
What do you think on that angle though of like blaming not playing enough solo queue? Do you think that's real? Is that a real angle?
I think it's just, we mentioned it before with Koi, right? It's like they believed that they should win and they worked as if they should win. Because I think
Okay.
I think it's just like it's a habit, right? In the end, it's a habit. It's like in terms of how you approach scrims, how you approach your hours outside of scrims, it all adds up very, very quickly. Because there are players that play solo queue and there are players that play solo queue. Meaning,
Right.
I remember there was an issue like both with Razork and also like with Selfmade, because these are the two players that stand out. It's like they just play like the completely wrong champions in solo queue because they
Oh,
don't
wow,
think
right.
putting the 20th game on Trundle is going to make a difference. But then you have like a
Right.
player like Bwipo who put 20 games of Trundle in solo queue. No one else did, and then his pillars are just goated, you know? Like the nuance of how you use your time, I think that's like the main thing. Because there's definitely players that play less solo queue that do super, super well, but it's just how do you use your time and how important do you actually feel every scrim game to be? Like, do you feel like this scrim game actually matters? Are you going to be okay with the scrim game being bad? Are you going to be like, oh, my bad, I didn't play so good? Or are you going to be like, bro, fuck me, bro. I'm not going to fucking do this shit again. Are people getting angry? Are people getting passionate? Do people actually care? And I think that's the main thing that like adds up. Like not playing enough solo queue, I think is just like a synonym for not,
All
actually
right.
giving a shit for your time. Because in the end, I did check like Razor's solo queue account, and I don't know if he has hidden ones, but he has like an all-time low amount of solo queue
Oh,
games.
wow, right.
So it's like it definitely like matters, because I do think that as a player, he was always a player
It's
that
you
needed to be like top 10,
saying like you didn't play enough solo queues, almost like a code for like be more of a professional, like be more diligent in how you practice and prepare yourself. Because what you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about basically is the idea that if him and Selfmade play a solo queue game, they're not actually playing like the fucking Skada Sejuani game. They're just going like Lee Sin and fight all over the map, I imagine, right? Which doesn't help you
Yeah,
in the competitive match, right?
yeah. It's like I had the same issue with Natty in the Ruddy Sack now. It's like he wants to be high elo. He prides himself, and his content is about that. So I didn't want to like push him too hard. But in solo queue, he's spamming Dr. Mundo and Rengar. But these champs were permabanned against us in the competitive matches. So it wasn't like super useful, but I also couldn't be like heavy-handed in him, because I know that when he streams, people come to watch him play Rengar and Dr. Mundo. So it was like a tougher balancing act. But these LEC players, they are playing solo queue to be better in the damn scrim. And it's like Wunder is a good example, because he had periods where he played a lot of solo queue. He had periods where he wasn't so high rank, but he played what was important for him to play. And the method of how you practice is very unique to people. But I think for most players, for majority of players, having a lot of games and being high elo is going to be good for you. I think it's the risk are that you're going to be playing good then, because at the end of the day, it's just putting volume into the game. But it's not the end all be all, because G2 have by far the highest ranking players, but also I can see that Skewmond does have a very solo queue approach to how he plays the matches on stage. Like he drives the game through him, and if not, it's like, oh, I need to go next. If I carry or the game sucks, So it's a double-edged sword with heavy tilting towards solo queue. Good, I would say.
Basically, except for small things like this, like as you say. By the way, I guess the other angle as well to put out there that's not terrible is Grabs is actually the original coach, in my opinion, that used to always play the defense on these talk shows. Like, if you don't know, I have plenty of other coaches I would bring on shows, but the difference is, like Youngbuck, for example, sometimes he'll use a show, like actually this is what people like Phil Jackson did in basketball. He'll sometimes use media to actually motivate a player by calling them out and sort of suggesting like they're having an issue, because he knows that get back to them, and he wants to sort of like, fucking poke him a little bit and see if they'll do something. Grabs his style always is sort of like, it's my fault whatever went wrong with this player. Like, I should have known about that. I should have told him to do this. I should have been on top of it. So in general, I think essentially, to make it short, I think he doesn't want to blame Razork and Humanoid, even though I think that's the problem is every Fnatic fan at this point is beyond tired of Razork and Humanoid as a combo. I mean, the saddest thing is, like, certainly Upset didn't play great in these playoffs, but like, he wasn't even in position to. Like, if Humanoid played the way he's in the split, then they get these leads. Then they're in position where he's online, he can do something. So I don't know. It's a tough one. Let's say I say, if I'm them, you just have to load up and go again for summer and just hope it doesn't happen. You basically just have to hope that next time you're in this needed position, they just don't choke. I know it sounds whack, but the problem is the players on paper, like, they're all good players. That's the thing that kills me the most, Yamato. This isn't the last few years. I never thought that Noah Jun bot lane should be able to go to all the international tournaments. I thought that was like touch and go in the like when we're talking about before, like Actually, Oscar in past years was way more fucking fragile. This guy could just fall apart. I mean, the joke is, the guy Irrelevant now who looks shit himself, he used to fucking body this guy every time he played a bit, felt like this guy had real trouble. Now this is his best year ever coming into these playoffs. Like, he never looked better. So on paper, all these players are good. Like, if you're Grabs, the good news is you could still trip over and somehow make it to Worlds. Like, it could still happen. It could still, but I get it. That's a bummer because every time you want to make the big run, it hasn't happened. You just fall on your face and look stupid. But I think it's the hardest spot to be in. I think he's in a really tough spot, mate. Then again, though, I won't cry for him. He has some amazing players. Let's see what he can do. Maybe there's still something can be done in summer. Who knows, right?
And for the Wunder angle, that I shipped that one.
I don't hate it.
There was a small stint there where he came back to Fnatic because Oscarine broke his hand, and in that period he was just even better than BB that they lost to in finals, and he was really, really good. I think Wunder is like the best plug and play player like ever. You know, like I think he would just he would help. You know, I think definitely, unless there's like some hidden gems. But I have a hard time believing it. I say this as a person that doesn't keep like a super close ear to the ground, you know.
I like the Wunder angle because I essentially almost had the same thing. I said it joking on Best Damn League, so I sort of meant it for the same reasons. My other joke would be, he's right there on the broadcast. I'd call up Odoamne and go, "You want a weak side, mate? We've got the team for you to weak side." And spoiler, I'm pretty sure Upset's going to sign off on this. Perma weak side with fucking on and Nard, so you can just play all day long. Yeah, welcome in. Come on in, mate. Like, because I'm with you. These guys, we're not saying go back and roll back the years and be your best. Just come in and do a job. Basically, just don't do what Oscarine did wrong in the playoffs. That's all we need from you. I'm with you. The problem I do think is, though, as much as everyone's talking this big game, Yamato, about, and anyone can be replaced, you let me know what player you're replacing Humanoid with. Fuck off. There's no one. Because here's the problem. We all know the real reason you wouldn't replace him is the next player might not have the same issues, but he won't be as good. Like, I actually do think, sadly, now it's aged badly because fucking they were terrible in the playoffs. But I think Humanoid did get snubbed in those All-Pro, mate. I think he deserved actually to be a top 3 mid laner there. Like, I think he was better than Giorgio in the regular split, even though Giorgio was way better than him in the playoffs. Like, so sadly, that's the reason why everyone's been tortured. It's not just the contract. It's also the fact that, like, it's hard to convincingly say someone is better than Humanoid. And everyone who now says Vladdy, you didn't say shit when this guy joined Karmine Corp last year, you liars. You never were like, this is the next Caps. Like, you say that now when he won the championship. Anyone can say that now. Like, if the eye test had been there for you, you'd have said it before. Although I will give credit, that's another thing about Karmine Corp players. People like Vladdy, you see him on solo queue all the time, mate. He's always trying out champions and stuff he doesn't even play, just to like expand the champion pool. So no, the up and comers definitely put in the hours. Anyway, let's put Fnatic to one side. The obvious team we have to talk about. There's one team left, mate. It is Karmine Corp. Bro, it's funny because at least people already like were prepared for the possibility Fnatic could fail. I think a lot of people, never in a million years, forget KOI winning the split, they didn't even think KOI were going to beat KC. They thought this was going to be KC wins, and then if anything, KC beats G2 and then they win the split, right? This is how they get theirs back-to-back. So give me some thoughts on this KC one, mate, because one thing I'll give them credit for is, I actually will say this, I don't think they ever were for shit. They never played really terribly in a whole series. They always had games where they got it going and Kallis could get off his game, and fucking, I do think Vladdy had a quieter split in playoffs, etc., but I think in general, a lot of the qualities were still there, but to come third, that is fucking underwhelming, mate. Like, they were supposed to be a lock for MSI, so give me some thoughts. What's gone wrong with KC? How has this drop-off happened?
I can say straight off the bat, like my prediction for who wins the split before this LEC weekend was KC. I thought they're gonna make it happen. I did think that the problems that they showed in the previous series, I thought it was just a question of like, oh, individually they're insane, they can still pull it off. Oh, Kallis had like a very, very bad day. This is like the worst one we've seen so far from him. That's not going to be something that continues. And we see like glimpses of it. And then Kana is just like rocking up and playing super, super good. And Vladdy has like expanded his champion pool. I could really, really see like the vision of KC's like improvement. But there was something in terms of how they approach things. Like I think KC tried very, very hard to break through the recipe of what brought them success in winter. But at some point, I do think that the prep work against KOI specifically was just the main thing that was lacking. I didn't feel like they were targeting like the right champions in terms of their pick and ban. I think that sometimes, especially in BO5s, when you play in Fearless, it's like you need to make concessions and play against some of the strongest shit, so you don't have to carry over bans throughout the whole series. And even though I think that there was a big change up, especially in terms of how they targeted bans, because in game 4-5 they did like target Alvaro's pool, which I think was a big change up. I think on the other side, KOI just showed that they were ready for that. And I thought that for the longest time that Alvaro and Elioyo would just have like not enough of a champion pool to just play their style throughout the whole series, but they just managed to do so. And I think the main thing for me that stood out for KC is the individual underperformances. This is a team that is driven very, very like purely by how well they play individually. I think in terms of like how they structure fights and how they structure the game, that is something that has always been quite inconsistent for them. And KC managed to pull through. Later on, they came into the game because eventually either Kana, Vladi, or Kalis would just pop off. And I feel like in this playoffs, the only real consistent player was Kana. Kana had moments where he like carried and pushed them over the line in specific games. But when your early games are this inconsistent, this is not something that is just good enough. Like your top laner carrying games can't be enough. And I feel like KC's journey reminds me so much of how like Billy is as a team. It's like as they walk into the series, it's like, oh, KC right now, they can actually like pull off wins. Look how good they are mechanically. And then it's like, oh, what the fuck was that? Whether it was like a mistiming in terms of how they play with jungle support, or even the preparationary work when they end up on like Pyke Wukong in a game 5. It just seems like at some point the overarching idea in terms of how they play together and also how they prep, it just seems like such a night and day in comparison to the winter split, because I felt like KC checked all the boxes that KOI now checks. It's like KC had the prep work, they had the cohesion, they had very, very good Drake setups, and now it was just kind of a mix of, oh, we're going to hope that we can kind of overperform in the fights. Because the way they dismissed Fnatic was like, oh, eventually there's a fight in the game that KC's just going to win. And it didn't matter if they were 3k gold behind, 3k gold ahead, like it just didn't matter. It was like, oh, Fnatic in a team fight, they're going to fuck it up and KC's going to win. It's funny that Fnatic lost 2 times the same way. You know? So it's just the team waited for them to int, which is bringing back the Fnatic point. It's a very sad point to be at, you know, just wait for Fnatic to run it down and win. And I guess that's like the main thing that fooled the majority of the community is like how G2 beat Fnatic and now KC beat Fnatic. Because in the end, KC, I think they just lacked that cohesion. I'm very disappointed. Like the main thing that really pains me is that there were a couple of series and games at First Stand in particular where they really, really played good early games. Like the 2 games that stood out to me was the top esports series where they found like level 3 gank angles to break ball lane and the matchup. There was like a clear line of thinking in terms of like the activity and the approach and realizing the details of the game that actually like matter and really, really being in tune with those details and committing all resources to making sure that part of the game is propelled forward. I feel like somewhere along the line, they spread themselves out so thin that the randomness of how they play just became their biggest pain point. It's like I think they just played way too many different champs, way too many different compositions. And I feel like this is the poison of Fearless, where you try to become better at things that you might be lacking and in the process lose what made you good in the first place. Because we mentioned KOI, very clear role and identity for each player on this team. What is the role of each player on KC? In winter, I could easily say this time around, it was much, much harder to see that.
One thing that's a bummer for me is that I never got to see in the playoffs this KC play against this G2. I'd actually love to see that matchup because I always saw the 2 KOI series and I saw the Fnatic one. But the reason why I wish I could have seen the KC versus G2 one is I actually feel like they could have beaten G2. I feel like they had the right squad to do it. Because if you look at the other one, KOI, because they leveled up, the difference is, right, Fnatic can lose from ahead against anyone. KC, I told you the whole split. I was always thinking they were going to make MSI, so I thought it was MSI where they'd get get shown up. I thought what would happen is this would work in the LEC, play from behind, but you just have godlike team fights where everyone just smurfs. Right? That first of all, that worked against Fnatic. That did not work against fucking MKOI, mate. If it was even vaguely even state, MKOI was actually winning, which just shows that, like, that shows you that one strength can't be it, because before KC could win even from behind, loads of golden kills with them crazy team fights. So I wish I could have seen that matchup, because I'm sort of with you. It's actually hard to sort of blame them for anything though, Yamato. Like, I agree. They definitely tried some experimental shit. They definitely tried like a lot of different things, but the problem is, if essentially you never get properly punished until this time in the lower bracket, if you never truly get punished, like in their brain, they think they should have won the MKOI series, of course. It was a 5-game series. Second one's really close. You're in these games. You're having games even. There's the odd game in these series where you do clap them once or twice. Like, it's hard to not just think, just run it back for summer. But the big bummer here is, this would all be fine as long as he came second. If he still came second and went MSI, it's all good. Don't worry about that. It's not the end of the world not to win the split. You know, the problem is, to come third, this is a failure. Like, everything was there for them. Like I said, people have been really harsh to Fnatic, and they've been really kind of kind to KC, I feel like. Wasn't everyone, including KC, by the way, KC also said all that in the interviews, bro, that shit from Yike. It just straight up said they're the best team. Like, they're not even going MSI. What do you have any concerns in that sense?
I think in the context of who is sending for LEC, I do think sending G2 will not be good. I think KC would just probably do better by the virtue of how they approach the game and also like the individual talent. Not saying that G2 are lacking that talent, it's just that the makeup of this team makes a lot less sense than KC, because there's definitely a world where the roles are very, very defined on KC, and they can be their best self in that context. While G2, I think that in a world where G2 as a team all individually played their best possible game, it's not compatible. Like, it's either a Hansama team or a Skimon team or a Labrov team or a Caps team. It's like, these are not players that are good at supplying the others, which I think the previous G2 was just way better at. And I think in the past, that's what made maybe Yike, struggle on that G2 roster, because he needed to adapt to everybody else, right? And on this KC team, he could kind of reinvent himself. But in the context of how good Koi is now, and knowing that they had 2 series that went to 5 games against KC, I guess that brings a level of, it's like, oh, you still had 2 series that went to 5 games against the team that ended up winning. So in our heart and mind, you are the second best. So I guess that aspect of it gives them less of an ass whooping in the context of the community. But I think KC, knowing how they played in the regular split, I thought that they would have the journey of like the most improvement, because I thought that they were dancing around the balance of giving up performance and also expanding at the same time, especially when we saw, like, in the end, like in the playoffs, we saw like Vladi carrying games on the likes of Silas. That was like the sacrifice you made for performance, to put that in your pocket. But I think in the process of pursuing that, I think navigating scrim practice, when you try to expand and go beyond, especially practicing in a fearless format where teams are going to insist on playing like best of 3s in fearless, best of 5 in fearless, it's very, very easy to, like, when you're trying to practice something else, to not get the repetitions on what you usually play. Because it's like, if you open up with a game 1 draft, already the next draft is going to expand into a different direction than what you're usually used to. And I just feel like from Casey's case, I think it was just greediness of trying to expand too far and not realizing when they actually need to tighten up, because there was very, very little cohesion. I compared this KC to what we saw in winter. Like, that KC that we saw beating G2 in the finals was like always on the same page, super, super sharp, really, really decisive in the decision making, and didn't really give a lot of opportunities to the enemy. And this KC variant is very, very different, for sure.
What about, I do think one area where, just because of how well they did in the split, people ignored it is, I do think some of the actual individual performances, though, haven't been as good. They've been awesome in team fights, that's what saved them. But, like, I actually do think Vladdy's a good example of a player to talk about. A lot of people last split wanted him to be MVP. I'm fine with that, actually. I think his performance was great. But one of the reasons why I've always been really nervous when people do that whole, like, it's the next Caps, is because, mate, it's like that whole, it's the next Michael Jordan thing. It's like you're putting the status so high that they're going to have to be like an incredibly rare player to ever hit that spot. So yeah, he did it last split. I thought this split was a bit of a down split compared to that. Relative to last split, obviously, like I don't think he was the best mid laner this split. Like I told you, I actually thought some of the other people played better. I also do think in some of these playoff matches, this wasn't the same. The guy looked much more of a killer in Winter to me. He was so much more dangerous. Like when you think about them being behind, mate, I'll tell you, if you tell me a team is consistently behind in the early game, Yamato, first question I have is what's going on with the mid laners laning? That's normally where leads come from. It's why the Chovies of the world are fantastic to build squads around, the scouts, etc., because they'll get you the lane lead and then you build off of that. So what do you think? Where's Vladdy at as a player, do you think?
I did think like in the regular split, considering like the performance of Caps and Jojo, like these are players that level up in the playoffs. I did think like Vladdy looked pretty damn good in like the regular split, because I always had like that asterisk in my mind that, oh, he's playing Akali and the Silas, he's keeping the Talia and the Yon in the back foot, like in the pocket when it's necessary. And they were like okay with letting series go to 3 games. Even though they had like a couple of 2-0 wins, there were definitely series that went to 3 games that on paper shouldn't have, considering who they, of course, played against, whether it was Team Heretics or somebody else, and lower, of course, in the standings. I think that in the end, like looking at the core issues in my mind, I didn't think necessarily that Vladdy was like the biggest point of weakness in my mind when it comes to this KC roster. I do think that the circumstance of the meta of Winter was super important for him, because when he played like Talia, Yon, Azir, he was just like completely popping off. And I think those repetitions really matter. It's like when you know exactly what you need to practice and need to play, it makes such a big difference in terms of what your form can be. And I think this split, especially in mid, there's so many different avenues you can go down in terms of what to play, because Talia gets often banned, and then there's like Azir is often challenged, and then after that you can go in so many different directions. It's like you can play Aura, you can play Silas into Aura, you can play Akali, you can go into mages, Orianna, Syndra, you can play Galio, you can play Annie. Like there's so many different angles and different like just directions you can go in terms of what you play mid lane, that it's very easy to spread yourself thin. And this is where you need to dig into, of course, your experience. Like Caps is a player that can easily just say, oh, I can play Galio here, no problem. I played this years ago, or Annie that just came back, and so forth. And I think that is like the biggest contrast to me. It's like KC was very good at playing, like finding ways to replicate the recipe. This split in particular, I think that, like we mentioned, how better teams are the ones with the top laner that is capable of playing tanks when it's necessary. This is not what Kana wants to do. And I think that KC, just with that in mind, being forced, jungler and of course support being forced to play a different game is going to also have an impact on everybody else. But I do think the kind of overarching line that we saw between winter and spring was that their early games were very inconsistent. And I think that's always something that really bites you, you know? That's why I always, historically, like in any team that I work with, I always made sure that it's like the first 8 minutes of the game are pristine. Because if we are better than the enemy team at this, we will have opportunities to win rather than working backwards. And we saw moments like, I think, G2, the first initial one with Perks and Emperor and then Sven and Mithy, like a very big issue that they had was that they had the vision that if they are better late game than the enemy, the early game doesn't matter. But that always came to haunt them when it came to the international, besides that one MSI when they made finals. But when they went to the World Championship, the early games they just got dominated in, and that always comes back to haunt you. And eventually teams are going to catch up. And KOI was the team that was very good in the early game always. And then eventually they put everything into place and found consistent ways to win the game. And I think this is just the better way to work in most cases. So KC, their early game is just such a big pain point.
One player I do want to still ask about on KC though is, like I told you, I think the narrative that was the most overhyped from Winter when they won was the Yike narrative, because people's brains went, wait a minute, KC beat G2, Yike used to be on G2, and Skumon didn't play well in the final, so that must mean that Yike's the reason they won and why G2 lost. But for me, I think this split, Yike's been up and down, mate. He's had times he was good. He's had times he's looked a bit dodgy. Sometimes he looks like he is one of the captains of the team. Sometimes he looks a bit disconnected. I do think if you look at this split, people like Elyoya have played fucking sick. Obviously, like Skumon's been good. Like, what do you think of the Yike angle? Is there an issue there?
I think that there were games that were good, definitely. I think like in the Koi series, it was like a Lilia game that was like pretty damn solid in my opinion. Like there was like a range of champions where he like performed good on, but I think the main thing for me is just like the way Yike and Targamas played together is just it's just not in a good place. It's just I think it's similar in a sense to like the Skumon Labrov problem, but I just think that Yike as a profile is better at being like active and finding angles. It's like if there are opportunities for Yike to get Kana ahead or like mid ahead, he actually like takes them. But I think the main suffering point was always when if the enemy jungle support is cohesive, they're gonna find ways to pressure Yike, and he is not good at operating under those circumstances. To be fair, not a lot of junglers are. It is a tricky situation where the enemy jungle and support are always approaching your chickens, always invading you, and you need to maneuver around that. But I do think that it ties into the issue of how KC's early game is, because I think when the enemy roles find way to break your lane matchups and then leverage that into the next step of the game, this is where KC are not good at recovering, especially in the in-between, because I think they rely on making sure that their solo lanes are strong enough to be able to push side and then to be there first on the objective. But if that doesn't happen, I think KC just suffer a little bit too hard, and they relied on those team fights later on. And I think their biggest issue is just coming back to haunt them, because in the end, Koi was just really, really sharp in terms of how they approach things. But I think for the future of KC, I wouldn't be too worried. I think Yike's still a very, very solid player. I think he was a very important part of course, KC's success in Winter. I think this is like a team issue and a prep issue. I wouldn't go so far to isolate like a specific player as the big problem, because I think it's just a question of Yike, Targamas function super well in a specific niche, and they need to kind of like expand that niche. I think if anyone, I think in the context of Kalist, he probably had the best possible split in Winter that he could have hoped for, considering all of the hype and so forth. But you mentioned it yourself, it's like being Caps or being a legendary player that is in that conversation of being like one of the greatest in your position is doing it for years and years and years on end. It's like for Kalist to have a split where he performed a little bit worse and had moments where he got caught and lost out. I think it's perfectly fine. But I think it just keeps us grounded on the topic of what Kalist is as a player. You know, it's like people should view him for he's a rookie that has done super, super well, and he's trying to find the limits of how far he can go. And I think that's like the place you want him to be at. So him like having an off day or two, I think is perfectly okay. And I hope that people will give him grace, because I think in 2-3 years, maybe in 4 years, that's when we're gonna have like the best version of Kalist that has like all the matureness, all the push, like being able to be really, really cipher in and out of what is demanded of him as an ADC. I think he's a diamond in the rough, because mechanically he's really, really trying to push. Well, you can see that he pushes over the edge a couple of times, especially in this playoffs.
Fuck all that. As usual, you've been way too reasonable. Here's why. Because when everyone goes in on Fnatic, all I have to do is point to the All-Pro. All-Pro says the only two players on Fnatic that were the best was the bot lane. Spoiler, that held up. It was the other players that fucking shit the bed. But what was the other 3 players in the All-Pro? It was the entire top side of KC. And I'll tell you what, Yamato, only that guy from Korea fucking turned up for me in terms of that form in the playoffs. The other 2, they just took turns to have their time off. No, they weren't bad. They weren't as bad as I was talking about. No chance. I mean, KC could have won all these series. It's totally plausible. But I do think they didn't play at the same level. I think, first of all, I don't think he should have been the first team all-jungler anyway. I think that one's a bit of like, he just got it because they had the top record. The Vladdy one, I'm with you. Actually, when I think about it, the mid lane pool was just quite weak in general. It was actually a lot of people kind of underperforming in terms of name balance. So maybe he gets it, but he definitely wasn't close to the best mid in the playoffs. I'll tell you that much. So my issue is this. It's like a good news and a bad news. The bad news is, like I say, I actually do feel like on paper, if I knew how the playoffs was going to play, the 2 teams I would want to send to MSI would be KOI and KC. I think those are the 2 best squads because I actually do think that really sick team fighting would at least have had a chance at MSI. And also, spoiler, I imagine you would be behind at MSI, so you're going to need to be able to fight from behind. I don't think G2 can do it. I think G2 is just not good enough in any one area. I think they're just going to get handled by all the top squads, basically. But the good news is this. I actually think it is better to get humbled now, though, and to realise that you can't just fuck around for a whole split. And even though this is where Yamato, I understand why it's such a difficult job to be a coach in the LEC, because everyone wants you to simultaneously win the game every week, but then also improve. And it's like those sometimes are mutually exclusive. Sometimes to improve, I'm going to have to like adjust some things that are going to make us worse in the short term. So we'll lose the game on the weekend, but then it'll make us better in 2 months. The problem I have basically is what KC did week to week to week, because the result in the server was saying you won the series. They were just presumably thinking this is okay, this is all right. But it wasn't. Those flaws were there. I mean, I'll always say this, the one that'll never escape my brain is that Heretic series they played in the regular split. If you go and watch that, like that should have been a huge wake-up call, but because they didn't lose, they just kept on. And I think that would have been really bad at MSI. But with that said, hopefully, here's what I hope for. I told you with Fnatic one, I don't even know what you do with that. I think that's a really tough spot. KC is the most obvious team that could just make, like, actually put in the effort, improve in these areas. And bro, we're not even talking about much. If they improve their fucking early game, like 5 to 10%, Yamato, that's enough. They could already be the kings of Europe again by summer and just go off to Worlds. Then who knows at that point in time? Like, the strength still remains. You don't have to lose your strength because you work on fucking laning. Like, you can fix that. Maybe it's even like you say, maybe we got a bit too experimental. Maybe we just retract the champion pools, play some more limited, do a T1, play some more limited comps, and then get the climb back up. Because if we could ever get the laning phase sorted, mate, they'll be insane. They'll be a mega team.
And now just to finalize this, it's crazy that we ended up here. It's like we knew top 4 is super fucking exciting in LEC. It's there's
mega for summer's going to be amazing, mate, isn't it? Straight
and we are here, like LEC executives are so happy that KOI want to split, KC want to split, and we are sitting here saying that we wish that KOI and KC went to MSI over G2 and Fnatic. It says, you know, I always have this, this kind of, I think about why, you know, the LEC or like lolesports succeeds, because there's like a lot of things that like go against them. But damn, is the LEC lucky that KOI and KC are like winning splits, you know?
Do you want a delusional vision for you? Are you ready? Right? If Fnatic can somehow get their shit together, we already seen the glimpses. If they can somehow be a team that's capable of making it to like a top 3 position, then are you ready? None of you want to hear this, but I'm going to say it. All of a sudden, Yamato was right. G2, 4th place summer, no worlds. Imagine that, bro. What would that even be? Everyone would lose their mind. Everyone lose their mind, motherfucker. Lose their mind. Now, look, there is crazy coping because I have to have Fnatic get their shit together. Like, that's not. I made that sound like a small thing. Like, yeah, just Fnatic get their shit together. Question mark, question mark, question mark. G2 doesn't even make worlds. Kyoto's right all along. Like, yeah, obviously, number 1's big. But my point is, it's not impossible anymore because you've seen MKOI looks really good. KC's obviously fucking good. Fnatic, we'll see. They've at least got the players to do it. I'm interested to see. I'm also interested, actually, what will happen with G2 at MSI because I feel like if they have a shit split, I don't know where their head's going to be at, mate, because, like I say, I actually think they're in one of the toughest spots you can be in, where your team's like good enough in certain areas that you're not going to radically change the squad. But I don't know what strength do you have. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. We're almost saying the other two teams have the other strengths. Like, Casey's really strong late in the team fight. MKOI's really good at building up a game against anyone, by the way, even better laners. I don't know what G2's strength is. As far as I can tell, it's like either one, play to Hans Sama, or two, actually let Skew1 do what he wants. But beyond that, like, notice how. And then we barely even mentioned, by the way, maybe that's the last topic on LEC we'll do. Bro, a lot of caps narratives kind of don't exist this year. That whole thing of like, oh, you just have caps and then you win. No. Oh, if you have caps, like, he'll always be clutching the fat. No. Sometimes he's just all right. By the way, he wasn't dog shit, but he's just all right. You know, he just kind of, like, that was one of those ones where he is human. Like, what makes his career incredible is how many years he did this in a row. This is a down year, though. Now, I will say, I'll give him that credit for that baller Aaron Rodgers line from like 4 or 5 years ago. It's like a down year for Caps is still a fucking career year for anyone else. Like, you'd take this. Like, the joke is, if you're humanoid, I'll take that down year, man. I'll still fucking perform in the playoffs. So, yeah. But if you're Caps, this isn't like the past years where he was the most OP player. In fact, you'll notice, by the way, he's not even really in MVP conversations anymore. Like, he's kind of just been a bit quiet. So I think there's one thing I do need to see for summer. I want to see the real Caps in summer. You know, we've had 2 splits now. Let me see the real Caps. Come on. And I even want him to call his own number a bit, Yamato. Fuck playing like a Victor to play for the comp. I want you to call your number, get that Tristana or something, and fucking carry a game. Come on. Give me some real Caps magic. Where is it? Where's the Caps magic?
Oh, it's like there was that one weekend, right, when they won back-to-back best of fives. Like that was like, ooh, Caps. Ooh, how did we forget about Caps? And like they beat Koi in that one. We beat Fnatic. I think that he had like the one Akali game against Fnatic that looked pretty ugly, but Caps looked good. And
yeah, true.
And the main thing is, like I mentioned it before, it's like how they played against Koi and then making into finals. It's like they just played like a completely different team, and that happened also in winter. So it's like, I feel like the Caps that we want is just waiting for his team to wake the fuck up. That's where I'm at. You know, I give Caps that much credit. I just think in that first series against Koi, like we actually had a good series from Labrov. We had Skew1 get busy with the Trundle and the Poppies, and they actually played a very side lane oriented game. And then it's like I'm at the point where I'm willing to entertain the conversation if G2, like in particular Labrov and Skew1, if they are just chokers. Like that's the conversation I'm willing to entertain, because I usually don't like having that conversation because I think it's like inherently silly. But the contrast, just looking at how they played in that series in comparison to the other one, and the same thing, what happened to them when they beat KC and then lost to KC, they were a completely different team. And you know, I think them going to MSI is so fortunate for them, because I think in a world where they went in dry to the World Championship with like Labrov on the roster and like Skew1 on the roster, I think that would be like super rough. So even if they go to the World Championship and they get a feel for what it is to play internationals and play against these teams that you've been studying and looking up to for such a long time, it's not going to feel, you're not going to feel as overwhelmed when you go to the World Championship. Like, sure, Labrov has international experience, but come on, it was on a BDS that was suffering. Being in G2, there are expectations, and it's just a different ball game altogether. So they are very lucky that they get to go to MSI and probably get smacked around. But I think that's going to help them to Worlds. Oh, EWC as well, yeah. That's true.
That's true. Yeah, it's more experience.
Yeah,
and if anything, less pressure. It doesn't matter as a tournament in theory. It doesn't count towards anything. By the way, here's the difference. I'll give you that Labrov. We talked about that episode 2 weeks ago when we said about that final against Illisac. I do think Labrov is a choker, mate. I'm sorry. Like, I've just seen him too many years of his career. He's even choked in regular splits before, in my opinion. The difference is, I'm not at all ready to put that label on Skew1 yet. Bro, this guy's just made 2 finals. And by the way, think about what I just said. He didn't make it like Yike did. Yeah, but he had Caps. He had Caps on a down year, mate. Like, it wasn't carried by Caps. Like, if anything, between the 2 players, I think Skew1's played better than Caps has this year. So, for Skew1, look, yeah, you haven't won the championship yet, mate. You've still played really well generally. You're still bedding in. By the way, you've still got a whole extra split. You just get, level up a bit more in summer. By Worlds, it could be awesome. Like, that's not even Cope. I think he's actually just tracking really well. Also, he has, by the way, himself crazy expectations. Think about it, he's in the spot that fucking Yankos used to be in, mate. Like, this isn't a spot where you're allowed to just be a passenger and be a whatever player. Like, if you're the jungler of G2, there's a reason why people were, even though now they changed their tune, people were fine with Yike getting kicked from G2. People were like, you know what? He wasn't the absolute best, and we want the team G2 to win worlds. That's the real expectation fans, even though it's a ridiculous one. I mean, I would say to fans, how about make playoffs first, for fuck's sake? But they're still on some shit from 6 years ago, mate, where it's like, no, I want to win. It's like, well, yeah, I want lots of things too, but mine don't involve a time machine, for fuck's sake. So anyway, put that to one side. I think Scumon's fine. I'm with you. His finals performances have been quiet, but everything before that's dope, mate. This guy's fucking, what a boss for a rookie. And remember, a pure rookie as well. Pure rookie. And like we said, it's not like he's a pure rookie saying, oh, tell me what to do, boss. I'm the dog. This guy's coming in trying to be like, no, I'm going to be the best jungler. Here's how I'm going to play. Here's what I want to do. Here's my picks. Like, I actually like that. I think I'm not scared for this game one at all. I am worried about Labrov though. I'll give you that one. I'm a bit nervous about that one. I've seen it happen too many times now.
But are we going to be in a world? Do you think Mickey is ever going to return to G2?
You know, the saddest thing of all, if you're a Fnatic fan, is I know what players are like, Yamato. And even though I can tell you, I won't speak for him, but I'll tell you the sense I got both from his interviews and from knowing him a little bit. I did get the sense that Mickey X took it a bit personal when they kicked him out of G2. When he did sort of think like, you know, maybe he was thrown under the bus or people knew he was kicked at Worlds, so they didn't properly try and play around him. And if you know Mickey X, he is a guy who plays with all his heart and goes all in. And he gives everything to his lane teammate and he gives everything to his team and he'll go in. And that's why I always say, I actually think playing with Razork also makes Mickey X look worse sometimes. Because if Razork hints, Mickey X is going to be holding his hand going right in with him, mate. And they're just going to go, we're just going to send it together. But I'll tell you what, I know what pro players are like when they're in a desperate scenario, Yamato. And even though you might feel like you want to say to G2, well, fuck you. You said I should be kicked. Yeah, but if you could join tomorrow and make them awesome, you know what? Maybe we do. So unfortunately, the ultimate iniquity, if you're a Fnatic fan, would be that at the end of the year, yeah, they just kick Labrov. Mickey X comes back, and then you've got shit at that point in time. They've just got everything, haven't they? And then, by the way, if I was both parties, G2 and Mickey, I'd do that move. Why wouldn't you? I mean, also, notice we're in a very different world where it was Yike and Mickey X. Bro, what about if it's Scumon to Mickey X? That could be a really fucking good combo even. I could see that being fire. Like, so we're saying it like it's silly, but I think that's on the table at the end of the year. Let's see. And again, Fnatic, by the way, not a giant org in terms of money. If you give them a good offer, they probably have to take it. I think it would be fair.
Yep.
Obviously, you don't want to hear any of that if you're a Fnatic fan, though. The last thing you can even have, like in your world, you want to guarantee the bot lane stays. Then we'll figure out, you know, which one of jungle and mid we lose, and then we're going to be a better team next year. Well, that's why, actually, by the way, I tell you how I'll tie that back in. That's why if you are Fnatic and grabs an upset, there's even more pressure for Summer. Because if you can win Summer, we can actually forget all this storyline. It's okay. Win Summer, go to Worlds. It can all still be redeemed. But if you don't, maybe you don't even have Mickey X next year. Maybe it is a different mid, and maybe it's even an ERL player there that might not be as good. Who knows? But everything could change. Because I do think it's obvious they won't stick with this 5-man roster at the end of this year if they don't win. Like, the sheer fatigue on their own fans feels like you have to change. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter what you think. You have to do it because fans won't accept losing like this another year, mate. There'll be no Fnatic fans left.
But if for some reason like this Fnatic roster stays the same for the next year, it's kind of like, you know how like some in the past, not currently, like that US candidates, like when they were like trying to become presidents in the past, not now. Now is a different landscape altogether. But they were like, so they had like visions of what they would change or whatever. And then it's like they come into office and their hair just turns gray, you know, they just look like shit, you know. Like,
and then you're like, what about your campaign promises? You promised to vote on this. And then they're like, well, circumstances changed, you know, political alliances. And then nothing changes. I know what you mean.
And then maybe there's a Fnatic CIA at play, you know. It's like, oh, this is what all the issues we're dealing with. This is the military industrial complex that is supporting Razork and Humanoid. So they need to keep playing, and you need to accept it. You need to sell it, and you need to eat it.
Yeah, basically, I think Yamato's point was Elon Musk didn't go far enough. What he needed to do was have Doge investigate what's going on, because is USA secretly propping up Razork and Humanoid playing together to lower the chances of Europe in national competitions? Is this some sort of Team Liquid Cloud9 conspiracy, FlyQuest conspiracy? Are they somehow involved with the US government propping up a jungle mid duel that should be broken up? They should not be allowed to stay together. Secretly, it turns out Fnatic just gets paid $300K a year to keep these guys in the lineup and pretend like they just did something. You know what? Fucking keep changing coaches. Grabs, bring him back, put him in the squad. Tell him they didn't play enough solo queue. That's all the big CIA charade. The deep state keeping fucking LEC down. You bastards in America. Oh, by the way, we'll shift to talk about LTA now, but I will just throw this out there. I know in the modern day, Yamato, that the people who run teams aren't the ones that run the Twitter account, and the Twitter account tends to just be some Zoomer Gen Alpha kid who's like, lol, everything's a meme. But I saw FlyQuest tried to do that banter thing where they were talking about the fact that like JoJo's won LEC. And I want to just be like I was on Twitter, like, motherfucker, you're not talking about people importing from other regions. Like, you know, in FlyQuest, like, you barely have anyone American. Like, it's like a team full of non-American people, and then like two North Americans are allowed to be on the team. Like, what are you talking about, you fuck? Like, you're just all the Europeans carry your whole asses. What are you talking shit? But anyway, Yamato, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but on this episode, we have to talk about Shopify, but not yet the LTA angle. Actually, Shopify the business. Because do you know what? Much like trying to build up a squad to compete in esports leagues, actually starting your own business can be really intimidating. Think about it. It's actually an area I have found myself in my job. What I always do is I work on my skill set first to get it good, but then once it gets to a certain level, you then have to actually learn other things to attenuate your success. Like, you have to work at marketing. So when you're making a business, it's not just about what product do you sell, what do you build, what do you make, what's your vision. You have to get all the things like your shop fixed. You have to get your ability to sell on the internet set up. You have to get the design to look good. These are all things that will actually make or break your business. And this is where Shopify comes in, because they have loads of tools that can help you in this regard. Like, first of all, Shopify is the commerce platform that has millions of businesses on it around the world. And supposedly their number is 10% of all e-commerce in the US is on Shopify. So that's like little small brands, household brands, people like you who are watching this show, but it goes up to like Mattel, who make all like kids toys, Gymshark, that brand that you see everywhere, people wearing those skin tight things where you see their arse, etc. And then they're like, oh, sorry, I was just watching you deadlift or whatever. Anyway, obviously you need like actual good design. If your shop looks crap, absolutely, people will judge it and they won't bother looking at the product. They have like hundreds of templates that you can use immediately that just look like a professional online shop. Also, they have AI tools built in there that can help you write the product description, do the headlines, enhance the photography that's on the website. They can help you with email and social media campaigns so you can get the word out there about your business. And crucially, they have loads of expertise in things like managing your inventory, international shipping, processing returns, all the things that you're going to have to learn and level up in to actually be someone who has a good business. That actually, the Last Free Nation shop is on Shopify. We're using that. So if you go to lastfreenation.shop, we've launched a bunch of merch. Like, we've got like a bunch of the LFN logo on stuff. Like, we've got like a founder's shirt that's going to be a limited run. I think it runs until 4th of August or something. It has like the LFN logo, and it'll have like a number on the side so you can see which one of the like limited drop you are. Also, if you it ships worldwide, but if you're from the US and you order $60 or more worth of gear, you'll also get free shipping, which is pretty cool. People often like that. And they've got like joggers on there, which I can tell you, I've felt the material's really comfortable. They've got a nice mug. They've got a mat for your desk. Also, to show that we're going to expand and not just do only logo stuff, we're going to do like, you know, Summoning Insight and other shows and do like catchphrases and cool stuff. Is you might see that on the LFN Culture channel, we have that 4-play movie review series where we review 4 movies per arc. And Tantalus, that guy you've probably seen on Twitter, who did the art for this show, by the way, the thing of me and Yamato on the overlay is ours on the waiting screen, is a mega, really quick, like, digital artist. He does these baller posters for those where he takes me, Richard Lewis, and Monty, the people on 4Play, and he makes us like characters from the movies that we're reviewing. And he's already done a poster, which is the 90s action arc. So it has like Monty is the guy from Mission Impossible. I'm like Nick Cage's character in Face Off. Richard is like Arnold Schwarzenegger's character in Total Recall when he goes in that big suit where he's like, 2 weeks. And then like the big fat woman suit expands out and he's going through. So anyway, we're going to do loads of merch there, so edit that in. But basically, yeah, we're actually using Shopify ourselves, so you can see that it works. It has a really slick design. It looks awesome, doesn't it? So if you're ready to sell, then you're ready for Shopify. So turn your big business into a Shopify business with the help of Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/summoning. It's just the first word of Summoning Insight. So that's go to shopify.com/summoning, shopify.com/summoning. Thank you to Shopify. Thank you to everyone who supports us. And now let's talk about the fact that not only can Shopify help your business, but in LTA, I can't even believe this, Yamato. Shopify Rebellion is like fucking everyone up. This is crazy. I thought when they actually won that game against 100 Thieves, like, oh, that's just on 100 Thieves. Bro, they beat TL now. The team we've all praised for years now. Like, the only team that understands macro in fucking NA. They've clapped 2 of these guys in a row. Let's talk about this squad. And remember, this is the squad where these are all the bloody misfits. Like, these aren't the big names. This is Fudge, who was kicked out of C9. Contracts and Parlofox are the old NRG people you all pretended you cared about and then didn't for the last 2 years. B-Boy is the guy who was just around in NA who was all right, and years ago used to be on that fucking Misfits with, what's his name, and you're playing the LPL with Feberman. And then Cios is that Brazilian player, so it's a very eclectic, weird bunch of players. And now they've won 2 best of 5s back-to-back. And bro, they haven't even gone to a game 5. Give me some thoughts on this team, because normally, I'll totally admit it, if I see this team on the schedule, I don't even watch the games, mate. Who gives a shit? But I've had to go back now, because these are real matches you're winning here, mate. Like, give me some thoughts on Shopify.
I feel like the biggest thing for me the biggest standouts, because it's like we've seen contexts where like Contracts is good and Palafox is good. I think Contracts is he's a big momentum player in the sense that like if he has the opportunity to invade and get an advantage, he keeps like his foot on your neck. Like we saw that whether it was like in that split when they were winning with NRG and they went to, of course, the World Championship and beat G2. It's like Contracts has very high highs as a player. Oh. And I think we are seeing that in the series that they won. Like for me, the two biggest standouts, if anything, is just like Fudge is actually like playing well. If there's anything that was like atrocious in my mind about like the all pros, I think I really like all pros globally. There's problems with all of them, of course, but something that was insanely atrocious was the all pro one for, of course, the LTA top lane, because they put Whip on first, and they didn't even include Fudge in the conversation of making it to top 3. They put Impact there, who is, of course, a player that has had a very mediocre split. So it's like Thanatos got second when he clearly deserved first, and Whippo, like Fudge just didn't make it into the conversation. And I think that he has kind of like recovered himself. I think he plays like a very good range of champions. I think Cios is a player as well that I've seen on occasion, but I didn't think much of him. I thought this was just like a plug and play player, that kind of makes sense. But this is Cios is like probably like the only thing that has been a benefit of the LTA merger with South and North. It's like, we have a very strong Brazilian player that has continuously improved on this team. And I think that they have emerged in this opportunity that has arrived.
People don't know Cios is like a legendary CBLOL player as well. He's won like loads and loads of splits. He was one of the top players. Like an interesting player to bring in, certainly.
And the fact that I think it's important to stress that both 100 Thieves and also Team Liquid are like completely on fire. Yes. The run that Shopify Rebellions has here, I would like equate it to what Team WE is doing, of course, in the LPL, right, where JDG and all the teams around them, like JDG and Top Esports, are just like completely on fire and are not performing because putting the context of like Team Liquid and 100 Thieves, like Team Liquid won the previous split and 100 Thieves was in the finals with them. They haven't managed to figure out how to get better. 100 Thieves is a complete anomaly, but I do think that in terms of the other players that I didn't mention, I like the fact that Palafox is actually reintroducing his range of play in terms of his champions. I thought it was super cool that he busted out the LeBlanc against the Ziggs, which on paper should be like super winning for LB. But there's not a lot of players that are going to have the guts to do so. And I think it's good and cool that both Palafox and Contracts are willing to like dig deeper and play with a level of confidence again. Because there's definitely been moments in their career where it's like, oh, damn, these guys are fucking good. And I think it's cool that they're showing it. I don't think they're going to do damage to C9 and Fly, but the fact that they spoke Team Liquid and they smoked the 100 Thieves, I think is super good in terms of like the conversation of where our expectations were, because I thought it was a clear top 4, a solid like bottom 4, whatever, that I didn't give a damn about. And I kind of just suffered through the games when they happened, just as it says yourself. But now we have an actual reason to watch them because they are in the top 3.
Oh, by the way, I know what you mean. Like, you certainly have to look at the big names first. Like an obvious example in that 100 Thieves theory is, could you even imagine being Sniper in that fucking Riven game, mate? like, I want to play Riven because it's my, like, fucking one trick or whatever. And then everyone's just fucking bot lane all game long. Like, how am I supposed to play this? Like, that wouldn't even work in solo queues already. Like, I don't even know what their teams are doing. The TL one is the big bomber, though, mate, because, like, you think of, like, remember, we've all spent the whole fucking split blaming Umti. It wasn't his fault. He wasn't even there. He was just watching like the rest of us. Like, you just look at this team, mate. Like, they had fucking some issues across the board. I mean, some of these games were mad winnable. They were in position to win some of these games even.
It's like the issues were like layered. It's like number one issue, Umti, and now it's like the number one issue. It's like they have moved up. It's like, oh, now APA and of course Impact's form, that turns into a red flag issue. We're moving it up the board. As Impact has been struggling ever since the removal of lane swaps. That was like his biggest edge. I do think that Team Liquid individually were never like the strongest. It's like APA was good in a certain meta that he figured out with the AD carries mid and so forth. But even there, he was like behind when new champions were introduced and the likes of Zeri and Spolder, because he was just keeping on the Corki and the Tristana hype train. In terms of adapting new champions and adding to his pool, this is something he has struggled with and has been the main point of criticism towards him. And I think it's clearly visible. And when he is pushed, he goes back to the usual suspects. He did play as Nico, he did play as Ziggs, and that just didn't look good enough in this series. Impact as a laner, I think that he skewed himself too hard towards, of course, the lane swap game, and I think it's important to also note that this is a player that has been active since 2013. At some point, the question of, how good are you going to be in terms of lane phase and so forth. I think it's very, very clear that he's lagging behind. I think in terms of the bot lane, that's probably like the only good point about Team Liquid in terms of the lane phase, but there's also limits in terms of what they can do. I think in terms of jungle, the weirdest aspect of it all is that in a weird, fucked up way, it seemed like they tried to shape him into like Umti. Like the opening game when he's playing Trundle and just running around trying to gain information on the map, I was like, this is what you had Umti do. Why is this the opening game for Juji in the playoffs? It just looked so absurd to me. I just want to pull up the other drafts because I think in the end they tried to like piece something together with the Viego. But at that point, it's like you're playing Viego Ziggs as your mid-jungle duo. It's like, what is Ziggs going to offer to you? He just doesn't want to participate in the game at all. And you're playing against Nafiri, which is basically the better version of Viego right now in the game. It just seemed like one of those moments where it's like, oh, this team doesn't have any power here. They're just trying to cope their way through finding comfort champions, because that's what they did, right? It's like Ziggs, Kesante, Viego. That is like maximum copium on finding comfort, and sponsored it himself in the interview in the middle of the series. It's like, oh, in the first games you play meta and you either counter it or you play against it, and then you just lean on comfort. And I think that Team Liquid's comfort right now is just not good enough. Their issues have been the same for far too long, and teams around them have improved, while this is a team that has just slowly descended into just performing worse and worse, because these same problems I'm mentioning with APA and Impact, being a weak side player that wants to play lane swap games, these are things we knew already last year. And while the change of Umti was very, very welcome, I think the flaws of everybody else is now even more visible because you can't only blame things on Umti, even though I did in a lot of cases.
By the way, that's all good. And by the way, it was the most obvious flaw, though. It's just as usual. I always say that, by the way. It's one of my lines in CS. If you actually have big problems as a team, it's never just one player. It can be one player's the main one who's the obvious one, but it's usually that player. Like, I'll give you the analogy that maybe people can understand, is if you ever feel like a muscle is sore in your body, sometimes it might not even be that muscle that's the main one. It's that's the one that had to overcompensate for another muscle, and therefore it was overstrained. So sometimes it can be something like that, like someone spread too thin or you putting too much on them because of other flaws. I know what we need to talk about now, which is there was a good series in LTA. It was obviously FlyQuest versus C9. By the way, almost certainly going to be the final. Bro, this was a fucking good series. Like, I can tell you right now, C9 could have won this. Like, it's why I actually do take such offense with the way that, like, NEA basically did the fucking career thing, where because FlyQuest was number one, they're just all the best players in the league. And not only that, Yamato, they not only have all 5 of the best players in every position, they have all 3 of the MVP candidates, even though that makes no fucking sense. Because by definition, if you're taking valuable relates to your team, then what the fuck is the value of the 3rd player there? If already, by your own logic, he has the 2 best players in the league playing with him, how could that ever make sense? Because I'm with you, Yamato. I should actually now say to you, it's crazy, isn't it, Yamato? They almost lost the series with the 5 best players. No, because I don't know whose fucking cousin of Whipple works in making these all-pro, but in no universe was Whipple the best top laner. I'm sorry, Thanatos from Cloud9 earned that spot. He looks really fucking good. And this series, this is why FlyQuest C9 is the rivalry. Like, what did you think of this series, Yamato?
I thought it was honestly, it was very, very close. I think C9, I don't buy the take that C9 should have won 3-1. Like, that's something that was like circulating, because I do think that it's like the fabric of the series just changes when the score changes. Like if C9
that's true.
won,
if
they won that game 2 right, and there was a 1-1, like that was a game that they really, really threw. I think C9 in terms of their solo laners, like Loki and Thanatos, are so damn good. I think that C9's bot lane are good at being role players, but I think that when they are in the position where they need to be the ones driving the game and carrying the game, I'm less excited. So I do think that C9's roles are very, very defined. I think the main thing to me that is so damn inconsistent, and he's basically just North American Razork with a lot more trophies, is just Blabber. It's like in this series, at this point in time, I expect a way higher level of maturity. He can't be the reason why they take bad fights, or why they posture poorly, or why he loses HP, loses summoners, or even overcommits to situations. This is just too reoccurring when they are in very, very winning game states. It's just at this point in time, it's like, even though I think C9 in a lot of core aspects of the game do better than FlyQuest, I can't shake off the feeling that Blabber is going to be a problem once again when they play a BO5. Because once again, it's like I've battled with the issue, and I've wanted Razork to do things differently, and I've wanted Blabber to do things differently, but it just didn't change. And I feel like Inspired is just way too cold as a player that he's going to be able to play super, super well, and at the same time just strike super, super hard when the opportunity appears, which is something that Blabber often gives. It was also the same the first time they played in that best of 3, where C9 was just like in a very, very good game state. All they needed to do was give up a dragon and play around the grubs and let the game breathe. But instead, they were just engaging on mid, engaging on river when it wasn't necessary. And I think the driving point, the driving aspect of that is Blabber. Because in terms of how they play their lanes, how they drafted as well, I think there is a lot of redeemable qualities about C9. I think on FlyQuest side, I think Inspired is super, super good. I think that the bot lane is super solid and has a very, very good range of play. But I think also at the same time, Whippo and Quad are quite inconsistent in how they play. Like that Shen game that Whippo played, it was quite awful. Like if you're getting farmed, and like just getting solo killed a couple of times, you're getting farmed and you're giving an opportunity to the enemy like that. I think, in the end, Whippo's one of those players that, the good comes with the bad. So that's just something that you need to come to terms with. But there was definitely opportunities for C9 to beat FlyQuest here, because I don't think that they are, just impenetrable like they were at certain points in this variant of FlyQuest.
No, by the way, I actually think the Blabber call out is very, very fair, because one area, here's the thing, when on talk shows, not on Twitter, when on talk shows we say something like that guy loves this guy or glazes him or hates this guy, we're really just using like shorthand that Zoomers use. That's all just like hyperbole. We don't really mean that. Like if I say Dom's biased towards Blabber, I just mean he likes Blabber's style of play. He's a bit more forgiving of some of his flaws. I do think Dom is one of the people who has consistent, I mean, he calls him the GOAT fucking, like the potential NA GOAT, the GOAT jungler, all that jazz. I have always had a problem with him, which is that the Razork analogy is a very good one. look, if you want to say what is good about Blabber, yes, he has always been a guy who's willing to go in. He makes shit happen on the map. He's a guy who will play the gank champions. He certainly is willing to rely on his mechanics, etc. But actually, he is similar to Razork. I know what you mean, in the sense that, like, again, when they make like the game losing int or move, I don't think if you paused that VOD right there, they would be able to tell you, like, oh, this was the wrong move. I don't think they know that. I don't think it's like that they're just making bad. Like, I think genuinely their decision making is just so intuitive that they don't have like a cerebral aspect that tells them that. So it's why I actually do think the problem they have is the exact type of player to count that as an inspired. Like, this guy's control game's just too good, mate. Like, you're going to have a really tough time. And if you put a foot wrong, you're going to get fucked. Because here's why I get why people have the copium take, Yamato. Because on the one hand, if I look at this series, it was a 5-game series, right? Game 1 is just really even for most of the game. At the end, FlyQuest win. Game 2, C9 had it all but one. And then the other 2 games after that, they win themselves and look really good. And then the 5th game's close. Like, yeah, absolutely. If you're C9 and you're the coach of C9 and you're Dom who's working with the analysts, you go, guys, don't worry. We fix a few things. We win the finals. This is very doable. Like, we actually are the team that can match up and beat them. And as you say, by the way, here's our edge. We have the better solo laners. That's just a totally reasonable statement to make. Like, if we can get our fights together, we're all fighting at the same time, we can beat this team. But I also do think if you watch that series, like, they have to take credit for their fuck-ups themselves that cost them this series. Like, it's all well and good doing like, well, we could have and we should have. You have to do it at the end of the day. That's my biggest problem. With that said, I do still enjoy watching C9 play. I think they're very good players. They've got some really excellent players in this squad. And even the way they've done things like Sven's not a problem in this team, mate. They make it work. They've sort of got an integrated team. I quite like both of those teams, them and FlyQuest. FlyQuest is more like the clutch team and the better squad overall. But I think the individuals on C9 are very legit. I will enjoy watching both these teams that make MSI.
I'm very happy to see that the investment in Loki and Thanatos is just really, really paying off. Like there was a period there where people just kind of after Loki's initial games, they kind of just
they tried to hate on him. Yeah,
they were just like, oh, it's over for this guy. But he was putting in the hours. He was rank 1 on the ladder. He was playing a lot of games, and I think eventually it just paid off. Thanatos the same way. Like his first split wasn't super interesting, right? When he joined C9 last year, but that was just him joining a team that was clearly dysfunctional. So it's cool to see these players just popping off. There are a lot of players this year that just came out of like challengers in Korea that are just playing super good, and I think this is going to be like the future. I think more and more teams are going to try to harvest some of those guys that are playing. Like the one player that just stands out to me time and time again is just the KT challenges mid laner Zini. Like this is the guy that is going to be like the next shit.
Yes.
Like, he is going to be signed.
I know what you mean. Put it this way, the problem you had before was people used to either sign people from bad LCK teams and gamble on them, or just through our solo queue. The obvious move now is, even though the funny thing is, Korean Challenger has already just started to actually bring players into the LCK main teams. The Challenger teams, there are teams there that aren't great teams, but there are individual players that can be world-class in the West, for sure. We've just seen it already, mate. Like, there's too many examples. I mean, the amount of them where, in the modern day, you don't even get it in the top teams anymore. You don't now get like a Gen G one where it's like, oh, this guy came straight out of Soku. No, they're always on a Challenger team. So I actually think that's the obvious. If you're a Western coach and analyst or a scout, LCK Challenger League is what you should be watching, because that's where you're going to find some player that's actually cheap now, but like he could actually be like the best player at his position in the West. It's totally reasonable. And by the way, I actually do think because of Kana that you're going to even see it in LEC now too. It's not only going to be LTA that does it, mate. Like if you're in LEC, we've already, if you think about it, everyone else is already spawn camping the ERLs. Everyone already knows who those players are. And also, by the way, if you're the likes of the Heretics and the fucking Vitalities and the KCs, you've already got your team you can bring your player up from. So if you're the other squads, if you are the Fnatics and the G2s, if you want a cracked out Korean, just go watch LCK Challenger, mate. It'll always be there. The joke is he might even be on a team you don't even give a fuck about, like Brion or something. Maybe they have like a secret gem in the rough if you have the eyes to see it, or the analyzer or whatever the fuck the giant X people use. The robot that tells them who to sign. The AI, whatever. It's not really, it just analyzes all the stats, guys. Right, I think what we do now is just go to the Q&A. Let's do the last segment, yeah? Do some Q&A. So, before that, though, I like to keep the show fresh. And what do you know? One of our sponsors that's back is indeed HelloFresh. Who doesn't love HelloFresh? So, guys, HelloFresh is making it even easier to get quick home-cooked meals into your schedule, curating delicious recipes. How about pasta primavera, chicken Dijon, pecan-crusted trout, over 100 seasonal snacks, side treats. And the best thing is, they've actually now got ready-made meals that are chef-crafted and only take about 3 minutes before you can just be eating them already. So think about that. That's about the time a draft takes, and then the screen goes loading and you start eating some of this before you get into laning phase, don't you? Every HelloFresh meal, by the way, uses high-quality ingredients, including seasonal fresh produce and proteins that travel from the farm to your doorstep. They have flexible deliveries, so if you're going to go like away for a holiday, for example, or you're away on the weekend, you can just pause that. You can skip it if necessary. That's one of the coolest things, actually. This isn't something that you sign up for, and it's like whatever you sign up for at the beginning, you're just locked in. No, one of the best features, actually, is that they essentially, like, you can work with them and they can be flexible. You can switch it up, so you can have weeks where there's more of it and you're going all in on this. Maybe you got time you're going to be at home working, studying, doing revision or something like that. Maybe you work from home. And then if there's times where you're going to be away and you're traveling or whatever, then you make it lighter and you adjust accordingly. They can make it work around your lifestyle. Also, I can tell you, I have tried HelloFresh many, many times over the years myself through sponsorships. I think it's one of the better sponsorships, actually. Like, it's very legit. It is exactly what they say. They do also do a very good, and by the way, every company's going to tell you all the products are fresh. No, this is real. Like, when they actually give you the ingredients, I can tell you they are like really high quality. They don't look like someone just used the dodgy part left over. It looks like they do a really good job measuring it all out. And actually, these ready-made meals sound perfect, because obviously I think cooking is awesome, but it is also great, like, when you have that time where you didn't plan your day properly, you're like, no, I don't have time to cook. If you have a meal that takes 3 minutes and it's actually with nice ingredients, it's not just some garbage microwave meal. No, that's perfect. So I think they're actually an excellent thing. So feel great with meals that fit your spring schedule and make this season even more delicious than KC coming third and not going to MSI. I wrote that part. Go to hellofresh.com/LFN10FM to get 10 free meals with a free item for life, 1 per box with active subscriptions. Free meals applied as a discount on the first box. It only applies to new subscribers and it varies based on plan. Also, thank you to everyone who buys it. Let me know, what do you like about HelloFresh? What sort of meal was the best? Also, I always point this out. I actually think the selection of meals they have is also excellent. It'll be a great opportunity to try something you haven't tried before. Since they do a great job balancing out the ingredients, there's even things that you wouldn't think to cook yourself that'll actually be awesome if you try from here. So you can also kind of spice up your diet too. You can have different types of things. You're not stuck with the same 2 or 3 things like the classic meal prep. So thanks to everyone who uses HelloFresh. Thank you to HelloFresh themselves. Let's do a quick break. We'll be back with your questions, our Discord subscribers. Right, the last section of the show is, of course, the potentially beloved fan question and answer segment. Now, the questions come from our Discord. So one of the benefits of subscribing to the Last Free Nation Discord is you get to submit questions to this show. You also get to submit hot takes to the CS and League of Legends hot take point made shows. And you can also submit questions to the Four Horsemen, where, don't worry, even though we haven't done it on many, many episodes now, I'm going to start making Monty and Richard Lewis do the Q&A, because I know people are interested in that. So anyway, I will now source them. As always, if you don't want us to read out your username, just put it within your question. Just say, by the way, please don't read my username out. But if you don't, if you just leave it, then I will also mention the username of who you are. So I will now go through, pick out a few takes, points rather. So let's have a look here. I'm going to start at the bottom. Nadnerb says, why do the elite players have much longer careers now than in the past? We are seeing this in LOL now, and it has happened in games like StarCraft in the past. Is it because less new players come into the scene to compete with them, or is it because newer pros enter with a better mindset than the early pros? What is your take? Why do you think people have longer careers now?
I need to think if it's true. I guess it's largely true, right? In every region, we have the same same usual suspects appearing. Yeah. I do think that the player base eventually like reaches maturity. I mentioned before earlier in the episode, like I always think about like why is League of Legends even successful? Because it's a very alienating game. It's like I think for the challenge that any game developer faces, that of course is running an esport, is that eventually like entering into the game becomes more difficult and more difficult. I always make the example of joining, like trying to play. Like at some point I was very good at Warcraft 3. Like I would lose against the best of the best. Like I would run into Grubby and just get stomped, but I would like be like decent. Like I would be like top 20, top 50 on the ladder sometimes if I had a good run. If I tried to go back to Warcraft 3
Fucking
today,
12 when we're talking about it. How old were you when you were doing that shit?
I was really, really young. I was like
Yeah, fair enough.
10, 11.
Okay.
I had my brother to help me out. But like I was good at Warcraft 3, and that's like I tried to play Warcraft 3 now, and people are demons. Like that. There's a little small player base that is still actively playing the game, and it's monstrous how the meta has developed and like how good the average player is. It's like I can't even keep up. And I think at this point in time, there's going to be a certain level of experience that carries over that is so important. I think in the beginning of any esport, in the beginning years, you're always going to have players that are the best because they figure out like the next level strategy. But when the way has been paved and there's a certain standard of play that you need to reach, and the meta game kind of becomes established, I do think that the players that figure out the best way to play the game as it is after a couple of years are just going to stick around. And I think the odds of people coming in and being new, I think can happen. You see that in chess too. It's like the most recent thing. It's like Magnus Carlsen lost to Gukesh in a classical game, and there's a young prodigy that is coming in and playing a very, very established game that is chess. It's just a question of you have so much more information that is going to be your first impression that puts you at an advantage in a sense, because in your earlier years you have less responsibilities, and also your mind is a little bit more like a sponge. It's very easy when you have years of success to stick to what works and what is going to, of course, make you really, really good. But at the end of the day, it's like if things change, this is where the difficulty lies. But I think with League in particular, the game has changed so much that the players that have all of these attributes are the ones that stick around. And I think that's why we always see the usual suspects go to the internationals, and it's rare that somebody breaks through. It's like what Casey did was incredible. Vladi and Kalis just like won the LEC and beat out the usual suspects. It's a very rare thing to happen, just because by nature, players that have stuck around for a long time are the ones that are adaptable and also have a very, very strong affinity for the game, and also leverage the experience they have over you to just smack you around when you're coming through. So, in topic of League, I think there's a lot of moving forces, but I think over time, we're not going to have a lot of new players just because of how difficult it is to just get into it. I think this is like the last generation in my mind.
Yeah, I think there's a few angles, because I would actually say this isn't a league-specific topic. I would say it applies to every single esport game. What happens is every new esport game, in the first 3 to 4 years, you get this like golden generation of the original great pros, and they actually only tend to last those 3 to 4 years. And then the people that replace them, they're the ones that get the 10-year career. And then you have the odd unicorn like an Impact who was just there the whole time. So that's extremely rare. So what I would say some of the reasons why is actually like it's a mixture of the nature of being pro and then how the scene develops. So the nature of being pro angle is this. When Yamato entered the EU LCS, that isn't because there was a chance to be a top professional and he knew this was a full-time job and he was working towards a career. He was just good at League of Legends and he happened to get onto a right team that was decent enough to get into the league. And then it depends what happens then. Maybe if it had gone great, him and Chushe would have been playing until recently. Maybe it could have ended after one split. Who knows, right? So I think back then it was way more erratic. No one was established. At the time, it was just a whole bunch of people who were sort of semi-pros. And the joke, if people don't know, is unless you were in the absolute best teams, you didn't even make good money back then. Like, it would probably shock people that aside from things like streaming, bro, people like Froggen were probably making like $1,000 or $2,000 salary a month, I would guess. Like, not very much at all. Like, very, very reasonable amounts. Whereas now, like, that's the sort of salary you make in like a top ERL team or medium ERL team. Like, the amount of money in the scene is enormous. So first of all, not only like as a player, you no longer think, oh, I'm pretty good. Shall I be pro? Oh, I'll see how this pro thing. If you even get into an ERL now, you're a pro. You're trying to be a pro. You're trying to have a 10-year career. You're committed to it. Another thing about the early days when it's really dodgy as to which teams you can get on and getting scouted and lack of coaches and no money is you get people like, think about that past episode where we brought up people like Extinct. Bro, there have been some unbelievably talented European players who just said, I'm done now, I'm out. And they just quit. I mean, I'll give an example of modern day people. I think it's crazy that people like Selfmade were just playing in fucking ERLs. Like, what? Like, these talents, if you still want to play, in my opinion, you should be in like LTA, LEC, like you're top talent. So I do think like being a pro just wasn't as much of a thing back then. And the money is a big factor because the money in LEC has leveled up so much. Like it is probably like 10 times more money today than it was 10 years ago. And then over the years, it's been like 2, 3, 4, 5 times. It's gone up over the years. LTA has gone back a bit the opposite because they sort of did a bell curve. They went from also not that much like crazy money to back down to somewhat reasonable. But the joke is what they think sucks. Like, you know, when the LCS walkout happened, Yamato, and people were like, well, actually, they've reduced the salaries and now some of those top NACL players only make 100K. I wanted to go, some of the greatest Europeans of all time only made 100. What are you talking about? Like, so we've got more reasonable, but now it means if you're actually an LEC level pro, even in the worst team, you're making actually a very respectable salary, especially for a country like Germany. Nothing too outrageous. Like you'll make like a good earning salary at that point in time. It's also why, if you notice, if people don't know, the real reason why Edward and Diamond Prox couldn't keep playing in Europe is because here's the point for you. At the time, to get the visa, you had to make at least 40,000 euros a year. They didn't. That wasn't the salary back then to be on Unicorns of Love. I'm sorry, it just wasn't. In the modern day, that would be in every fucking team you'd make that much money. So now, to even be a pro, here's the obvious example to give you, Marto. Right back in the day, even if you were the best player in a game, like you were Get Right or Grubby or fucking Expecke, the joke is you didn't, if you went to a bar and a girl goes, so what do you do? Go, I'm the best at League of Legends. You say something slick like, you know, oh, I kind of have like a cool like passion project as a job, you know,
IT.
or I'm kind of, yeah, you have to. The joke in the modern days, that would be the thing you'd say, and that would make you cool. Like if you were Monacy from CS and you were like, by the way, I'm actually one of the best Counter-Strike players in the world, they'd be like, fucking hell, that's sick. They'd have heard of like G2 or something like that. That would actually be like a selling point now. So the money's different, the nature of expectation of what it means to be a pro different, and now it is a real career. I mean, I'll even say this, one part I think's mad underrated is that you actually can not only have a career before you get to LEC through the ERLs, you can do it like a self on the other side too. If you want to keep playing, like, by the way, an obvious reason why self-made should keep playing even in the ERL is I don't think he wants to go and get an office job in Poland, mate. I don't. That's his fucking dream. That's really, really boring. So why not keep playing the game? So the difference is in the early days when there's fuck all money and you're extinct, some mega talented player, you just go, actually, I'm just bored with being a pro. It's not my thing anymore. You know what? See you guys. It was cool. It was a couple of years. I'm off. Now it's a real career path. Like you just do it now. You just keep going. So I think I think it's a mixture of things. And also, lastly, you touched on it. Essentially, one of the things I think is really underrated is that I actually have the opposite perspective, Yamato. I give more credit to the players that are the best at the end because everyone's learned and everyone's had a chance to learn from that. But it's also why the early players should never be overlooked because they didn't have anyone to learn from. They had to invent that shit. They had to counter that shit. They had to find out nuances and wrinkles. And that's really, really difficult. So I also think back then, the stakes to be good are crazy. In the modern day, everyone has seen the basics of how you do some laning concepts. They all understand the basic concept of how you set up to take a Baron and smite it and what you do around objective control and when you base and a lot of these things that permeate through the scene. That isn't there in the early days. So I also think that if you're a diligent professional who studies the game and has a good coaching staff, they can help get you up to speed in a way that was just all on you as a pro player in the early days. So I also think it's gotten easier in that sense, even if it's also, as a result, more hard in terms of the competition. There's more people around. So I think it's just something that applies to every esports game. Right. Now we will ask this question. Actually, it's one for me. I'll be very quick, though. This guy says, let's have a look. Who is it? Paul or Pual 9755 says, Thorin, what do you think of the NBA Finals matchup? And what do you think would be the final series score? So as he asked it on the 7th, so that would be Saturday, so it was before game 2, right? I actually do think, in theory, the Thunder should win. I'm just a fan of the Pacers. The Pacers have already overperformed. They shouldn't even have been in the finals. That should actually have been the Celtics, but they had the injury and the issues. I don't think the Knicks was ever going to get it done. The difference is the Pacers is a good team. The problem is they don't, like, SGA is better than Tyrese Halliburton in terms of, like, as a star. He actually is a reliable, consistent star. Tyrese Halliburton is a player, I think, who's like a really good player to spread the wealth in the team, and then he's clutch. But that means the game has to be close for him to be clutch. He's not the guy who's just going to drop 30 on every game. So if you watch game 2, Siakam is kind of the sleeper. That's why he was the MVP of the conference finals. He didn't turn up in game 2. I don't think he's the player that's overperformed. It's a bit like when he had his run with the Raptors. When that guy overperforms, he has a canny little game as sort of like a second star. He's pretty legit. So the problem is, on paper, they should lose to the Thunder. And as a quick note, I'll do my little bitch here. The reason the Thunder will win the NBA championship is simple. They have a superstar that nobody is allowed to ever touch, but then his teammates are allowed to maul the other team. Like, I've actually, in the history of the NBA, never seen a more unfair scenario than this ever. Because essentially, your teammates are allowed to be the bad boy Pistons, but then you're not even allowed to have someone fucking wave a feather at you or it's a foul. So I don't even know how you're supposed to play against that. In my opinion, you have to call the game roughly the same way. Not for stars. Obviously, stars get extra calls. But you have to call the general game similarly. So I think the NBA has to really, when the Thunder win, and I imagine they will win in 6 games, I think the NBA has to actually look at how they officiate these players. Otherwise, you can end up with teams like this. And I think it actually does ruin basketball. Whereas what I love about the Pacers team is just a really well GM'd squad. There's a really great job, nice and deep, all sorts of different players, even a lot of like underrated names that are like better than their game. And by the way, every pro player that said Tyrese Halliburton is overrated, your fucking brain is overrated, you cretin. Now chuck up another shot and take $7 million, you dunce. There you go. Right, now there's a question for Yamato. It says, Spookin, if you had to pick one non-spice ingredient that you would have to include in every dish you ate for the rest of your life, what would it be? And it has to be a part of the main dish. It can't be like a silly side dish. So it's not a spice, it's an ingredient. What ingredient could be in every dish forever that you eat that you would enjoy? What would you pick?
Is dill a spice?
I think it's technically counted as one. I think so, unfortunately.
I need to Google this up.
It's a herb, but I think herb and spice is sort of like similar thing.
Yeah, its leaves and seeds are used as an herb or spice for flavoring food. Ooh, this is tricky, bro. I think I would just keep it simple then. Like I think I could eat. I would go with like egg or chicken or the egg, you know, because I feel like that just makes every meal better. I've never like, ooh, egg is in this. That sucks, unless it's like a dessert. But even in desserts, sometimes bake cakes with some egg, you know? So if I had to choose something that would be a part of every single meal, fuck my cholesterol. I'm just egging it up all the way. Like egg is just broken. Egg for breakfast, egg in your meal, egg in your fried rice, egg in the evening. I can eat egg all day. No problem.
I feel like I maybe might be cheating here, but I don't give a fuck. He set the parameters. I'm just going to answer accordingly. The two obvious ones to me is some sort of like a fat that'll just make the meal taste. So the obvious one is like butter. If you don't know, almost every single restaurant food that tastes better than at home is because they put like 5 times more butter than you do. They put loads of butter in that steak. They baste it the whole time. They're putting stuff in at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. And then the other one, similar to butter, is you can use coconut oil. That's one of my favorite fats because I do keto sometimes. So I'd use coconut oil and everything. So I've sort of cheated, but I haven't. So there you go. Right, here's a good one. I think it's actually a perfect time to ask this question, even though he asked it at the end of the split. Imac says, where does BLG's Elk sit in the all-time ADCs? That's a pretty good question. What do you think?
I think in the conversation of like his career pre-Tabe, of course, pre-Tabe Bilibili, I don't think was too impressive. I think he wasn't even in the conversation of being like a top AD before that run started with Bilibili and Tabe. I think that, and like considering the longevity, it's quite short then, all things considered, because that's 2023 where Elk started, of course, stepping up to the plate. This was Gale Force meta. His Aphelios was very well known. Lucian was marvelous. I think last year he was in the conversation of being like the best performing AD across the whole year, outside of course, Gumushi just at the World Championship being really, really insane, and maybe, them being strategically weaker than a Genji at MSI where they lost. I think that those Bilibili rosters are like a team that it just unfortunately didn't win an internationals just due to how good T1 was at Worlds and of course how good Genji was at that MSI. So it was just like poor timing. But when I compare this to some of the usual suspects, whether it's a player like Viper, Ruler, even Gumayushi, they've just been performing like Deft. They've just been performing for a longer period. And I think that matters a lot in that context. I think a player like Jakilov, also higher, of course. I think a player like Light even could even squeeze in and be in the conversation of where they're at, So for me, it's hard to place him because he doesn't belong in the conversation of top 10. He just needs to play for a little bit longer, I think.
Problem is, because he's from the LPL has had a bazillion ADCs. I mean, even the ones no one remembers, like Hope and fucking, what's his name? Oh, who am I remembering now?
Name?
No. I mean, I may as well, but I
He only
remember.
had one
I was
split.
thinking of.
One season.
A Mystic, iBoy. These people have all been champions. If you don't know, guys, people just forget about them. They've just had so many talents. So he is, in my opinion, that's one of the more stacked roles in history. And there's a lot of good Koreans that even fit the bill. So I don't think. Put it this way, I'm with you. He wouldn't be a top 10 all time. It wouldn't even be probably, I don't even know if he'd be top 5 all time in the LPL. He'd probably borderline that. So my issue with Elk is this. I sort of see him like a Chinese Hans Sama. I think you have to play quite heavily towards him and you have to have the right support with him. And if you do, he can be very good. He can be world class and he can be elite. But I don't think he's some like Uzi Eye, Jakob guy where it's just like just having him, he's always going to be one of the best. I don't think so. So I do think it's an interesting question. I think he is right on the border of like the sort of ranking that you want us to talk about. So it's an interesting player, certainly. But I do think, put it this way, here's the difference, Yamato. When they used to have Yagao, Elk was an enormous part of winning in this team. As soon as Knight got here, it's more a Knight and Bin team than it is an Elk team, if you know what I mean. So I think that's a bit telling to me. I don't think these players got it wrong. I think they know that those are the better players. So certainly very good, but I don't. He's not like I say, he's not a generational ADC for me. He's just a very good ADC at his time. Big Boy says, how would you feel if League of Legends Classic based on Season 2 was announced tomorrow and Riot basically had its own esports circuit? And the idea would be a bit like, he says, a bit like old school RuneScape. You would actually have like a separate game that was like sort of managed and developed to be like a classic feel. What would you think if they did that? Would that be good?
Oof, I think that it would be fun for a short amount of time, but I think that the flaws of the game would be so apparent so fast because there's a lot of things that would change because of players figuring them out rather than Riot just trying to change the game. Because usually all changes that happened to the game were due to problems that players created in their sandbox because they just created the game as like, oh shit, this champion is too OP, this is oppressive, this is something that we don't want viewers to watch. It's like Season 2 League of Legends. It's like I was there at that DreamHack where, Froggen held the base against Alex Ish for 80 minutes.
Back summer 2012, yeah.
It's like, I was there and I lost to that COG roster, in the group stage. I don't think people would want to watch.
Someone even linked this recently. I believe it is like the biggest gold lead. It's like a 20k gold lead or something they overcame.
And it's like, I don't think people would actually enjoy this.
They would hate that, mate. They would hate it.
The fun aspect of the game would be like modern players breaking a Season 2 game. But I don't think this is something that would be more than just vanity. It would be cool like for one event to just see what players would do as an all-star type event, just as a throwback or something like this, just to see what people would do with the game. But I don't think it would like last at all. It just isn't the same thing. It doesn't work the same thing the same way as old school RuneScape or vanilla World of Warcraft because the base of the game, like you kind of added building blocks, but League kind of erased everything and started again, erased everything, and there was too many things that were taken in and out all the time, while vanilla has like a clear progression. It's like vanilla into TBC, and that's his own island, and then Wrath of the Lich King came in, and that's his own place, and everything else stayed intact. And the pathway to that also stayed intact. And with old school RuneScape, that was just holding on to, of course, a game that just was raw in its nature, and it's once again an MMO. The core point isn't the PvP, and the nostalgia still hits hard. And League just isn't the same.
The problem here is this, Yamato. One of the things at the end you're sort of touching on is he doesn't really want to play a Season 2 League. He wants to re-experience being who he was when that was the most advanced version of League and everyone was new and it was fresh. Like, I'll give you 2 quick other gaming analogies that I think will make people understand this. So one would be, remember 5 years ago during COVID where the game everyone played when we were all locked down was Among Us. Do you remember that? Now, if you remember that game, there's a reason that isn't played to this day. It was a brief flash in the pan, and I can tell you why, as someone who played it, is if you play that game and everyone in your group has already played it once or twice, it's really fun because it's so crazy. But if you play that game and you've played it once or twice and another person's played it for 3 months solid, it's a fucking nightmare because they know every little trick. They know that you didn't really do that task. They're keeping a mental note of all the tasks everyone's done. They're figuring out, well, you said this, and it becomes at the end, they've sort of like, essentially, they've figured out the meta of how to play the game too much and it ruins the game. It's not fun. Similarly, a classic example of people wanting nostalgia, Yamato, is they want to play old school PC games. Like, think about, like, if you're an old school FPS fan, think about games like Half-Life or System Shock and these. The problem I can tell you right now is it's actually really lucky that those games back in the day used to have difficulty settings, Yamato. You know, you could have nightmare mode where it's like super hard. If that didn't exist, you couldn't even play them all, because back in the day, the tech was so bad, you didn't use a keyboard and mouse and strafe. So people even used to play on the keyboard some of those FPS games. So it means that essentially when you boot that game up now, because you have played a million FPS games and you have a super modern mouse, you're too good. You'll kill all the easy bosses where you have to put the nightmare. So similarly, he's thinking it's going to be great to play Season 2 League. Do you know what? Every single player who plays Lee Sin would just be doing the fucking insect on you 24/7. Every player will know the combo on Riven. Like, these were things that were rare back then. Everyone could do a basic Mad Hive Blitzcrank hook. They could. Back then, no one could do it. That's what made it insane. So unfortunately, essentially, it's a bit like the question of why people get to be pros for so long. We've all learned from each other. The real problem is you can't recreate that scenario where it's all fresh and we don't have the things we know now. We still do know the things. So I actually agree with you. I don't think it'd even be that popular. I don't think it'd even be that big a game, mate. Right, Bot Pounder 420 says, is it true if I use the code Thorin at my GamerSupps checkout that in addition to saving 10% on my order, I will also obtain all 5 pieces of Exodia, win the Olympics, balance my checkbook, and save Christmas? It isn't. None of that's actually true, except that you will save 10% on your order if you do that. And see, what's good is I didn't do that, but he did just secretly sneak in a company I work with in a saving that you can make by using my code Thorin. I gave him some strategy, so thanks to Book Pounder. But no, none of that was an irreverent but untrue set of statements.
Thank you, Bot Pounder.
Right, Sassy says, do you think British actors, I'm actually interested in what you'll think of this. Do you think British actors on the whole are better than American actors? He says, I think there are some American actors who are on par, if not better than the best British actors, but I feel on average the quality of British actors has always been higher. What do you think? I wonder, as an outsider, what do you think?
If I just like make a reflection of like my favorites, like there's definitely like a battle of the American ones versus the British ones. It definitely comes up. I guess in terms of like just size and population, like considering it's like how many people are like from the UK?
They're supposed to be like 65 million or something. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. Because it's like in that context, definitely like the British actor seems to be like an outlier. But it's like my favorites are I don't know. It's like always it's a class. It's like Christian Bale. You know, it's like most of the American ones like Christian Bale, Brad Pitt. You know, I'm a big fan of DiCaprio as well. Yeah. So it's like I'm very basic bitch when it comes to like my actors. And I don't know. You giggled this. What is one of these ones from the UK?
Do not look in the Twitch chat. Do not look in the Twitch chat right now. Do not look. I'm
not looking.
Are you ready?
I don't have it open.
You've made it perfect for me, Yamato. Do you know why? Christian Bale is a British actor. I think you've solved the problem for us right there. By the way, that's why it's an interesting question, Yamato, because essentially that gets to the heart of this topic, which is, first of all, there's an obvious problem that American actors have, which is, if you've ever heard an American actor do another accent, by the way, I think Leonardo DiCaprio is a very good actor, but did you ever see him do that movie Blood Diamond where he did a South African accent?
Oh, yeah,
it wasn't good. It was ropey, and you could tell it was one of those ones, Yamato, where someone should have just took him aside on day one and went, you're not really doing that accent, are you? But because he's DiCaprio, no one dared do it. They all thought, he must just know what better. The difference is Christian Bale already convinced you he's American. He's not. He's actually British. But the point is, British actors in general tend to be very good at doing American accents, you notice. I'll also say you can apply it to a lot of people, but like Tom Hardy, etc. All these people can do an American accent. It passes. You would just believe it's them. By the way, the best example as well, another classic one is actually House. The guy who does House is a British sort of upper middle class British actor. Yeah, he just does it. He just does a very good Hugh Grant. Not whatever his name is, Hugh somewhere or other. He just does a very good American accent. So first of all, accent helps. That definitely helps because you passes in that sense. But also, a lot of the British actors have a background, not just in acting. They come from the theatre. And like all the legendary actors, basically, like Laurence Olivier, fucking Ian McKellen, Patrick, these are all people who've done like Shakespeare, mate, before they became in big movies. So I think that is like a level of acting that is above doing like commercials and being on a soap opera. So I think you have an advantage in that sense. Also, if you are a British actor who is a known actor, because we have a very small film and TV market in England, you will actually get lots of work. Like if anyone's ever watched any British made film or like Downton Abbey, it's all the same actors. It's all the same. It's Maggie Smith, Dame, whatever. Fuck it. It's all the same. They're all in all these movies, basically. So I think you also get a lot of work. But yeah, overall, British, like you said, if you do it like relative to the population size, yeah, the British actors are killing them. I think just in general, it's just like a style of acting that I think is different. I think the American one's a little bit more like for TV style. So I'm with him though. I do also think if you get like a Daniel Day-Lewis, they can be as good as any or better than any British actor. But I would say on average, yes, I think mostly the British actors seem to be better. But I obviously have a bias in that regard. But I do think it's perfect that you said Christian Bale, because obviously he is actually British. We don't know. You can look that up.
Well, I think all British actors need to identify themselves with names like Benedict Cumberbatch. You know, it needs to happen as this or like Cillian Murphy. You know, like we need. It needs to be clear. It needs to be clear. Yeah.
And then let's see. We'll do like 2 more quick ones, then we'll finish.
Sounds good.
Jay says, hi, Thorin and Yamato. If you had only one player's pro view you could watch for the rest of League's lifespan, who would you choose? So that's the
Chovy.
rest, not before. The rest, Chovy, okay.
Easy. Chovy is just magic, man. It's just magic. Like, there's a certain grace in how he plays that is just it just amazes me. So I like this is probably the biggest reason I hate the fact that Pro View no longer is a part of everything. It's like I feel like it needs to be part of the public records, and everyone would just benefit so much from it. And I think Chovy is like the easiest choice. If I don't have to take the easy choice, then I would go over to probably Bin would be my guy. But I know it's hard to say right now, but I must imagine that he's going to get good again. You know, because Bin's stream is just. My go-to, like I always watch those long, like 6-hour VODs of his Bin stream on YouTube. That some random account just uploaded. That was like my go-to, eating food and watching something. So Bin's my guy.
I would take, look, by the way, I agree. Chovy's a very easy answer, not least because he's doing genius clicks that you just don't get to see on the stream. Like, I'd love to see that. Like, I actually think what's funny is I can actually give you a Westerner that I would even consider watching. Mate, I would love to just watch Inspired Pro Views. Because what I love is I actually think Jungle's underrated for Pro View because it's actually OP to know when they can't see shit in the fog of war. That's when you find out who's a jungle genius and who just like locked into it and walked through that area. So someone like Inspired, I would love to see him just control the game from the beginning to end at any level of competition. And if I can't take Chovy, another pick for me, because he said going forward, so I can't take like Rookie, because that's like 3 years ago I want to watch those Pro Views. In the modern day, a player that I still think would kill in Pro View is Jackie Love. I'll bet this guy has fucking unbelievable looking like moves if you see him in the bot lane trades and how he plays on the edge of damage around fights. That would be a really satisfying one. So yeah, the last question of the show will be by Captain Confused. He says, which final at Worlds in the past changes the most if it would have been Fearless draft format?
Oof. Damn.
I've got one I'll suggest in Eaglet, but keep thinking of yours. This will tilt them, but an obvious one feels like the DRX T1 final. Bro, there's no way DRX is getting to a Game 5 Fearless draft and still having picks left. Like, they had to have it where they could get the right picks for Kingen and Zika. Like, I think they would never have won that final in Fearless draft, mate. Meanwhile, that T1 team would have been really good, actually. That was the year where they were still banging, mate. They were really good that year.
Well, I feel like in the same vein, I feel like Billy probably would have won out against T1 last year because I think just top lane and mid lane, they just had like a way deeper depth. And Faker as a player was really, really sticking to a few things in terms of what he played, and he was really, really damn good at it, but it would have definitely like challenged him in a very different way. I'm also thinking back to like any of those T1 runs besides the 2022 one, which I agree that would have been like very beneficial for them. But even in 2023, it's like when they carved out a very specific niche in terms of how they play bot lane, it's like pulling out Varus Ashe in one game would have been very costly. It's like removing 4 AD carries from the pool because the enemy wants to play Kalista Senna against your Varus Ashe. That would have been, that would have set up JDG right in their comfort zone instantly if the Fearless would play out like that.
Right, that'll be it. Thanks to everyone who submitted questions and everyone who supports the sponsors, and we'll see you next week.